The Fan.
What's up now? Brother, what's up? This is a big party, man. I can dig it. Right on.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying.
I think anyone who puckers up their lips and presses it against their boss's buttocks and then smooches is an ass kisser.
I seem to be inept at everything except my work. I'm good at my work. So I confine myself to that. All I want out of life is a 30 share and a 20 rating.
The man's enlarged my mind. He's a poet, warrior in the classic sense. I'm a little man. He's a great man.
Think of it as colors. There's black and there's white. And in between is mostly gray. That's us. Now, gray is a tough color because it's not as simple as black and white. And for the media, certainly not as interesting. But it's who we are.
When we grow up, leader fan radio network.
Excuse me?
KFAN.com. It's 2 minutes and 35 seconds past 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Welcome back. Bumper to Bumper Show returns. 3.5 hour tour. No longer on location. Egan yesterday, St. Louis Park today. Back in the very safe confines of the Fan Radio Network studios on a pretty warm, getting a little steamier Wednesday afternoon here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program. My name is Dan Barrero, former Ink-Stained-Wretch newspaper of the Twin Cities. Guardsy's the producer, two-time state high school tennis champion as well. Thank you for your, even if it's divided interest in the program, we'll take it. If it's undivided, that would be even better. I don't think you get full flavor. I don't think you get full nourishment in terms of what this program can provide you if your attention is divided. That's all I'll say. I can't, tell you that you shouldn't do those other things that make you divided. But as long as you're divided, your attention's divided, I don't think you're going to get all of the nourishment that we believe on a daily basis we are able to provide you as a program that very much attempts to change lives.
Are you talking to the audience or yourself during the top 5 at 5?
Probably a little of both.
Who are you talking to?
Probably a little bit of both.
Because I agree with that sentiment.
I would think, now if I gave you undivided attention for the top 5 at 5,
it'd be unsettling.
The bit would be over. You wouldn't even know what to do with it. And
I can't deal with the eye contact.
The concern also would be, for you, I think, is, well, now am I busted? Because now that he's paying attention, is he going to realize I'm really not devoting the attention I should to the top 5 at 5? Am I able to get away with my occasional propensity to skate and to skim and not really get to all of the important stories or talkable stories because he's not really paying all that close attention?
I will say, when the days when you go, I can't believe you're not getting to this, that always unsettles me a little bit. Because a lot of times I'm like, I should have gotten to that. Or sometimes you're just trying to get me going.
Or sometimes you don't even know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea. And that's always a little unsettling.
Yeah. Well,
But that's all right. That keeps me on my toes, which is good.
It could be one of those days. We'll give you the Borton Volvo scorecard in just a couple minutes. Remind you that as we speak, I am rebooting the Bradshaw and Bryant inbox, and you can reach us that way now that it's wide open. Booth, BOOTH, at KFAN.com. Could be, I think, should be a very eclectic program today, with some toy department stuff we'll cover and some A-section material that will be part of the deal. This program also today, at times, may go artsy-fartsy on the bit.
Excuse me?
Yes, there's a possibility. We believe in all forms of art on this show. We believe in books, as in literature. We believe in music. We believe in art. We believe in cinema. Am I leaving any of the major art forms out? Sculpture. I'm a little squeamish on sculpture. I'm not ripping it. I'm not a great sculptor mind, I don't think. I haven't paid a lot of attention to sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
I did mention theater, and it's a good one to mention. You're right. Theater should absolutely be in the mix. I said music, didn't I? I'm pretty sure I said. Oh, by the way, speaking of music, I know you're working on a couple of possibilities for State Fair time from a guest standpoint, some of the musical acts that might be available. I'll throw out another one that is back in the mix that you'll hesitate to want to book, because the last time we had her on, I so fawned over her.
Oh, Liz Phair?
That no, we haven't had Liz Phair on.
Oh,
we've talked about having Liz Phair on. No, Joan Osborne.
Joan Osborne, that's
Joan
right.
Osborne, who is who you're thinking of.
Yeah,
she's coming back to town. I think mid to late September. At my favorite Minneapolis music venue, which is sort of reopening.
The Dakota's back.
Dakota
is
back. Now, I say that advisedly. I don't know where we're headed here. Every day now, you start feeling things are closing up on us again. But I think she's scheduled to come in mid to late September. So that might be a good post. State Fair ends late this year, right? Or Labor Day is late this year.
Labor Day is the 6th, I believe.
The 6th.
September 6th, yes.
So if she's coming in the 15th or the 20th, I would think that would give us something to mess with post-fair.
The 25th.
There it is.
Saturday the 25th.
Saturday the 25th. Yeah, Joan.
2 nights. She's there the 25th
Seriously?
and 26th. Yeah, it looks like 2 shows on the 25th.
That's outstanding.
Do you have another Liz Phair?
Liz Phair is a good one. That I think she's a tougher booking.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have another Joan Osborne interview in you, though? I mean, you fired a lot of your bullets that day. You're going to have to summon it up.
Yeah, well, the beauty of it, it's been several years, I think, since the last time we had her on. So the beauty of those interviews is you can ask pretty much the same questions. I don't think she's going to remember.
Probably not.
And I'm not going to remember. Although it would be kind of funny if she said, Dan, the last time we talked an awful lot about that. Do we really need to talk about it again? Can't we freshen the thing up a little bit? That would be rather disconcerting. In another way, it would actually be a compliment, but I think it's unlikely that we'll have to worry about that. The dirty little secret is that most of the time we get musical people on is because they're plugging something, which we're fine with, by the way. 100%. I'm fine with being used in that regard. That's the conduit. That's the way in. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, the Spinners at the State Fair. We have some hope there. And your guy, Kevin Costner, is performing. What's the name of his group?
Modern West,
Modern West.
Yes.
So he's not, I don't think he's acting in anything at the State Fair.
Well, remember what they're doing after the Modern West show.
No.
They are playing Field of Dreams at the Grandstand. And I'm not making that up. They are playing Field of Dreams at the Grandstand after the concert. Or maybe before, I'm not
they?
sure.
The
fair. Yeah. Or whoever, that's part of the show.
No kidding.
It's part of the package, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
The soundtrack from it, in other words?
No, they're just going to put the movie up on a big projection screen.
I misunderstood you. I thought you meant now that band is going to somehow play the music.
No.
Some of the music. You're saying the film itself.
That's my understanding.
Is going to be up there.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, I won't watch that probably. I probably won't stick around. It's a Friday night, if I remember. The second Friday?
Yes.
Because I've seen Field of Dreams at Field of Dreams in the cornfield with my dad.
We're happy for you.
And the next day we had a catch. So, I should probably never even watch that movie again.
No, you shouldn't, really. You should. Because
that'll never be
the natural
topped.
instead. That's what you should do. I could do that bit. If we get Costner, I could do. How long would that bit last?
Not very long.
You do the old. You remember when that beautiful woman you were having an affair with came to your room, all dressed kind of strangely?
Yeah.
And then she shot you, and it was fade to black, and then it was, can you somehow recapture another life? Can you come back from that kind of tragedy? Do you think he'd laugh at that? Do you think he'd chuckle?
Probably
or do you think
not.
He'd say, not
no,
funny.
He's a serious artist.
Funny. He is a serious artist.
He's a serious artist.
Very true. In fact, I saw him. What's the movie we just talked about it the other day? Within the last 2 or 3 weeks, his newest film. It'll come to me. I'll remember it during the break. Let It Go. Yeah. Which was man, oh man, that's an intense motion picture. Well done, but an extremely intense. I think I mentioned it originally. It feels like this sort of soft, genteel, modern Western that has a really almost soothing vibe to it, even though it early raises some disturbing and difficult questions. And then it turns into something savage, just flat out savage. But I do recommend it. I mentioned off the top of the program that we are indeed your What Are We Going to Be When We Grow Up leader. We'll attempt to explain that question further and also attempt to answer that particular question as we open up this edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. All of that coming up after what we like to say in the business.
This message is brought to you by Wonder Wellness Cannabis Gummies. Where is your journey to wellness taking you today? Wonder offers the convenience of effects-forward, low-dose gummies to take you there. Relax, laugh, or focus. It's your choice. It's cannabis in control. Discover the wonder of cannabis and wellness. Visit us at wonderwellness.co. These products are intended for persons 21 plus in Illinois. Individual experiences may vary.
You didn't.
Yep.
I thought you learned your lesson.
I guess not.
Dad, the vultures are back.
Okay, kids, you know the drill. Windows up.
Gone too far looking for a good deal on gas? Try Price Match, only from BP Me Rewards at participating BP and Amoco stations. Learn more at bp.com/best price.
The Fan.
It's a really good question. Joan Osborne for the record. Bumper to Bumper is the name of the show. Morton Volvo guest lineup is one person deep. It's Pat Kessler. He's scheduled for 5:15 today. Among these subjects, we intend to explore the rise, and fall of the governor of the great state of New York. That would be, is it Mario Cuomo?
No,
Mario, that's a different Cuomo.
It's Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo.
And Chris Cuomo is the TV guy.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Mario was the father.
It's like Cuomo's and Kubiak's.
I say those last two rise and falls because when the initial allegations came out, he seemed to be very much in the I'm going to ride this out mode, and everybody was waiting for the investigation. So it almost felt like he rose again a little bit, at least in his own mind. Now, is he falling again? Everybody's calling for his head. He's continuing to be combative, given no indication that he intends to resign his position as the governor of the state of New York. I was about to say New York, but that'd be the city. The mayor very much dancing on Cuomo's political grave. It's called Democrat on Democrat crime in the state of New York. I mentioned off the top of the program that we are indeed your what are we going to be when we grow up leader. And in this case, I mean specifically What are the Minnesota Vikings going to be when they grow up? I asked the question again today, not because this is an obvious day to ask it. Generally, those questions are asked at the beginning of training camp as it opens, and then perhaps the beginning of the regular season. But I thought today would be a good day because we've just had our second visit out at the new Winter Park, TCO Performance Center. And we had our only session that is scheduled with the head coach, a freewheeling conversation with Mike Zimmer, in which, once again, he came off, he was pretty open on a number of subjects. And on the subject of the state of his team, I gave him the opportunity to guarantee a playoff berth and a division title. And he refused to go that far, but he did pretty much say, we're going to be pretty damn good.
I like our team.
I like our team. He's liked our team before, frankly, and sometimes when he said, I liked our team, it hasn't worked out. Now, you could say at the time he said it, they didn't have the number of injuries that would eventually pile up like a year ago, but that's what I'm trying to get a read on. Do we like our team? I know there have been several significant stories away from the team itself that has made it difficult to concentrate on the football part of the operation right now, and even maybe early getting a handle on that question. And I'm not sure anything in training camp is going to tell us this early where this might go. Now, it is, I guess, worth noting that according to one of our favorite West Coast Viking sources, Darisaw and Wyatt Davis practiced today. Can you confirm or deny it? Because Zim made it sound like he expected Darisaw next week, right? Didn't he say? I thought he said
Monday for Darisaw.
Yeah. Now, our West Coast source is claiming that he's practicing today. Now, maybe he's practicing 50%. The question is when he's going to start practicing full bore. No holds barred, no limitations. Because the number one issue continues to be how quickly you can, on the fly, refashion an offensive line. And it was, I think, another one of the interesting comments from the head coach yesterday about the needle they're trying to thread at this point in terms of style. And if you recall, what he told us from the perch is that when Adrian Peterson was the running back, the Vikings, it was more of a downhill power, and that the Vikings built the offensive line accordingly for that style of runner. Then they decided we're going to go more zone blocking, a little more finessey, because of a really good cutback guy. Dalvin Cook is a terrific cutback runner. But then he kind of acknowledged, but the sticky wicket there is if you go too finessey, you might compromise your capability to protect your quarterback when he goes back to throw. So what they're trying to do now is have the best of both worlds. Still keep the finesse, but add a little bit more beef, a little bit more size, a little bit more power that corresponds, at least in his philosophy, in his mind, to better pass protection. That sounds really smart in theory. It sounds like a really good idea. The question is, do we have the people who can execute that sort of combo platter? Do we have the individual pass blockers and run blockers, offensive linemen, who can fulfill that dream? Because you tend to think if you're talking about a rookie, even though the date is only August 4, that you want him in everything from the start of all the offseason stuff to give him the best chance to walk in and be your starting left tackle when we open the season. Is it against the Bengals?
Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati Bengals. Where is that game?
That is in Cincinnati.
That's in Cincinnati, right? What's the date?
Of the game?
Of our opening game. I should know it by heart.
September 12th.
September 12th. So that's a Sunday noon start, I think.
Yep.
September 12th. Because I'll be honest with you. I know I'm supposed to boldly declare we're done or we're on our way. I don't have a good feel on it at all. The unsettled part for me is in every town at this time of year, you can find the following. 5 things to feel good about. Minnesota Vikings. Then there's that other section. 5 things to worry about. Minnesota Vikings. And the 5 things worth worrying about, I think, are so key and so varied that it's hard for me to believe that it can all come together on the fly seamlessly to a place where we're sitting at 12-4 this year. We're one of those deep, we're easily in the playoffs and we're on our way to at least having a chance to make a run. I'm not saying it can't happen, and it sometimes does happen in the National Football League. Part of the reason that the sport is popular. You can make big jumps. We know about all the injuries, but the concerns are all legit because the concerns have to do with things that aren't in place, that haven't yet been established for any length of time, right?
Yeah.
Cornerback.
Yeah.
Offensive line. Kicker continues to be a very big part of it. You could even say defensive line in terms of a lot of interesting pieces, but none of them have really played all that much together. I actually think that might have a chance to come together faster because of the names there.
Yep.
And we already have had, it appears, one significant question answered. Danielle Hunter can move. We don't know, again, how he's going to look in pads and all that, but he can move. He doesn't look stiff. He doesn't look like he's babying his back or his neck. It doesn't look like he's going half speed. His body, as the head coach confirmed again yesterday, is explosive again, which is all a good thing. But the stuff that is worrisome is pretty fundamental stuff. Offensive line, and in a league still now dominated by the passing game, defensive back, cornerback position.
And to answer your question from earlier in the segment, because Zim did say he hoped Darrisaw would be out Monday, back out there Monday. He was out there today in pads, did some individual stuff as they ease him back in. So the first-round pick is back in at least at a minimal participation rate. Didn't do any of the team stuff.
Okay.
I don't think did any of the passing game stuff, but was at least out there. Wyatt Davis was out there as well, which Zim said yesterday he thought was going to happen. And he, it seems like, took part in almost everything. He got a lot of run.
That is correct.
Second-team guard spot.
Let's follow up on this because we have also some sound we want to play, reviewing a couple of the things that Zim told us yesterday as it pertains to his quarterback. I still think the questions on him aren't whether he's competent, and capable of playing well. The question is always, can you take the next step with him? It's kind of gone back burner because of all these other more fundamental open questions, things that are less established than Cousins having some very good numbers last year. But on the COVID-19 front, there's something worth reviewing. There was at least one comment that Zim made with us yesterday that I probably should have pushed him on regarding specifics, but I want to at least attempt to explore it, and maybe the two of us can kind of come to some kind of conclusion about what he might have indeed meant. As I mentioned earlier, Bradshaw and Bryan inbox is open, booth, BOOTH, at KFAN.com. Kessler is scheduled to join at about 5:15 today. We also have, before we're done, believe it or not, some Luke Longley sound.
Wow.
The odds on that, I have no idea. Luke Longley sound.
We're going to have to introduce him to the audience.
We've had Luke Longley sound on the Fan.
It's been years.
It's got to be maybe decades.
I don't think he was part of The Last Dance.
No.
Which we would have played, and we played a lot there.
They didn't interview him for The Last Dance, did they?
I don't think so.
Not that I remember.
I don't remember that either.
We might have missed it. But we'll get to a couple more Vikings-related items and play back some of that Zim sound in case.
This message is brought to you by Wonder Wellness Cannabis Gummies. Where is your journey to wellness taking you today? Wonder offers the convenience of effects-forward, low-dose gummies to take you there. Relax, laugh, or focus. It's your choice. It's cannabis in control. Discover the wonder of cannabis and wellness. Visit us at wonderwellness.co. These products are intended for persons 21 plus in Illinois. Individual experiences may vary.
You didn't.
Yep.
I thought you learned your lesson.
I guess not.
Dad, the vultures are back.
Okay, kids, you know the drill. Windows up.
Gone too far looking for a good deal on gas? Try Price Match, only from BP Me Rewards at participating BP and Amoco stations. Learn more at bp.com/best price.
The Fan.
Example of the painful nature of watching free agency begin if you are a Minnesota professional basketball fan. We spent some time on that yesterday as a number of names that have been considered kind of intriguing to join the club end up going other places. Not always huge names, but perhaps helpful names. And we were reminded again that when you're in the position this team is in, you tend to forget, and you're rooting for the best, and you're hopeful, you tend to forget that there are a lot of other teams looking to improve their teams as well. And those players, when they have choices, are not generally going to go with a team that is still this far from being a legitimate player in this case, the Western Conference. And in fact, it's a name that Johnny Athletic had mentioned with us, because I asked him, all right, give me a name that's not as big a name that might be intriguing, that might be gettable. And he mentioned P.J. Tucker. And in the blink of an eye, P.J. Tucker. Let's just say for the sake of argument that Gerson Rosas had some conversations about just how interested the Wolves would be to add a glue kind of a player like that. And said, man, we got a great opportunity for you here. We're a young team. We're trying to turn the corner. We're trying to build, but we could use a couple of, more veteran guys, just solid guys who can do some of the dirty work for us. Come play here. And you, as PJ Tucker or his agent, say, okay, well, I appreciate that conversation. Can you hold on? I've got Pat Riley on the other line. And in fact, I'll tell you what, let me call you back, because I'm just going to...
I just got a Zoom link from Jimmy Butler.
Once I start talking to Pat, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to put him on hold again to get back to you.
Right.
And the rest is history. He signs a 2-year deal with the Miami Heat, who are building a nice little roster. They added Kyle Lowry, who's a little long in the tooth, but I think still has something left in the tank. And they just re-upped with Jimmy. Bucket's got his big long-term deal that he wanted from us, I think. Oladipo is staying there, I think, who's got his head injury. The point is, this is what we're battling. PJ Tucker, just because we want PJ Tucker, and just because he would be a great fit here, doesn't mean he's going to think of it the same way, especially when he has options like the Miami Heat. And that keeps repeating itself. And it keeps repeating itself because we haven't done nothing yet. I think Stevie Wonder said that once in a song, but that was about something else. But you get the point, even though it's a double negative. Nothing's happened yet, even if you love Ant. And so another guy who would have been intriguing as, a blue-collar-ish guy setting the right tone, is going to Miami Heat. What would you do? They come here? Leaving aside the geography, just the basketball.
Yeah.
They come here?
Right.
Or are you going to go to Miami with Riles and Buckets and a damn good coach, by the way, I think. I think he came in when he was like 12 and everybody kind of doubted him. Can't remember his name, but
Eric Spoelstra.
See him, Spoelstra.
We call him Spol.
He's a good coach.
Yeah.
So, and they got a nice program. They're not winning titles every year, but they got a nice program. But I digress. Yesterday we were at TCO Performance Center and we chatted with Mike Zimmer, and we pushed pretty hard on the COVID stuff, and he gave a number of, I think, expansive answers to us. And one of them, I think one of my questions was directly about conversations, if he'd had conversations directly with his quarterback, because that's, let's be honest, that's the center of this. Although I will add, there's more than a little reason to believe he's not the only high-profile player who is apparently not vaccinated. All the concentration is on him because the quarterbacks all got put in the protocol. But I think we got some other players who are pretty big-name guys who are also in the same boat. But this was about Cousins. Coach, have you had direct conversations with your quarterback on the vaccine issue?
Not really. I've talked to him about not necessarily whether he should or shouldn't get vaccinated. I've just talked to him about some of the protocols, which he doesn't believe in. And, and I said, well, call Dr. Sills or call the league or whatever there. Call your PA. I'm kind of, I don't know what the word, refined to the fact that, these guys aren't going to do it. It'd be curious to find out how many of the starting quarterbacks aren't in the league. I don't know.
So there were a couple of interesting answers there within that single answer. The first part was I've talked to him about some of he's trying to make a distinction, at least in his mind, because I'm asking him about the shots and vaccination. And he says, I've talked to him about, but not necessarily whether he should or shouldn't get vaccinated. I've just talked about some of the protocols, which he doesn't believe in. So what does that mean? I should have asked him the follow-up question.
I know. I'm trying to figure out what that means.
What does protocol mean? Because it sounds like he's distinguishing that from saying I'm talking about the shots. So does that mean he's saying when they put all of us in the same boat, whether I feel like I've gotten close enough to Kellen Mond or not, that's what he's rejecting? What's the basis he'd be rejecting that on? To me, that's a wholly different issue than the shots themselves. And then you're getting into that wouldn't be philosophical at that point, or religion, but we're talking about on the protocols. You're deciding that you have better knowledge on what protocols I believe in and what I don't, in terms of the steps that the league has decided in this case to take, and many other professions they've done the same thing. I don't know. The other part of it, and we did discuss this after the fact yesterday, was his sort of wondering out loud, Zim's wondering out loud about. I'd be curious
how many QBs
to find out how many of the starting quarterbacks aren't vaccinated. I don't know. I took that to mean it's an implied statement to Kirk. Like, man, come on. Most of the other quarterbacks understand the position. Even if they have whatever feelings they have about the shot, they get it. They're leaders. They got to be around. They're important. You can't afford to lose them. And they got vaccinated. You took it the opposite, that maybe he's hinting that fact is, if we had a poll, we might be surprised about how many, even in a league in which allegedly 90%, the overall number is 90% vaccination, how many of the quarterbacks are no different than Kirk Cousins. I've seen a lot of stories about percentages.
You're right.
But I've not seen any break things down by position. And you could say, well, what difference does it make? I would say a lot, given the importance of the position. It would be interesting to find out whether quarterbacks are less likely to be vaccinated. Now, there's also the 90% number is interesting, because there are people I talk to who believe the 90% number, once we get to the real rosters, not the extended, bloated rosters that we have this time of year, that number is actually going to come down. The implication, again, being that some of the better-known players who feel as if they really can't be messed with, that they're too valuable to teams, that the number of, even throughout the league, is going to go down, even though, as of now, it appears, by published reports, the Vikings are in last place in terms of vaccination percentage. Zimmer didn't give us a confirmation or denial on that, but he fully confirmed that even if it's greater than 53%, which was a number that was going around yesterday, that it's definitely well below that 90% mark. So wherever we are, we're not anywhere near the upper stratosphere. So I don't know. What do you think about what he meant by either the protocol thing or...
I don't know. I was... Because when he said it live, I kind of figured like he just doesn't believe in the shot or the vaccine.
That's what I was computing without maybe listening closely enough but when you read the quote and listen to it, it sounds like he's trying to say separate from the shots themselves.
And Kirk might even be annoyed that he has to go through all of the protocols.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he might be that might be where he's just frustrated by it as well, even though he could obviously take care of that by getting the vaccine. The point of having the protocols in place, if we're talking about the protocols, was to have people get the vaccine, obviously.
Correct.
Make their lives easier. So, but I don't know. Yeah, it would have been, because when he said it at the time, I definitely thought he meant just like the shots or the science or whatever it is. And so I'm still, I think, a little fuzzy on it and confused by it.
Yeah, I am too. And maybe that'll give us, maybe that means we'll get a second shot at him. No, probably not.
Well, he's done talking about the vaccine. He made that decree today.
Oh, he did say it? Oh, good. So we got in just under the wire. I thought that's how he was going to use us, that he was going to say early, we talked about it yesterday, that he's been so open chatting about it for days.
Yep.
I would not have been at all surprised if yesterday he'd said, I'm done. Let's talk about other stuff.
I think you were the final straw.
I may have been the final. I pushed him to the final position where now
it's over.
He's never going to talk about it again.
As somebody,
well, you know when he'll talk about it again? When there's another outbreak.
Yeah.
Then he won't be able to help himself at that point.
Probably not. I did get a text from a few people at TCO today. One of them included, "You guys broke. Happy Zim." Zim was kind of grumpy today.
Well, he was.
And I watched the first 5 or 6 minutes of the press conference just to see, because I'd seen the quotes, but as you know, when he wants to shut it down, he shuts it down.
Absolutely.
Getting questions like, "What have you learned about the quarterbacks that are here?" I don't know. It's been 2 days.
Yeah, right.
What do you?
When he's in that mode,
you're bringing a couple of defensive linemen back, and are they doing something different? And what's the benefits of that? That could just be for the offense. We're giving them a different look.
Yeah.
Other teams might do that. Okay.
Next question.
But yeah, before you got
Time
down
for
there.
2 more.
Okay, we've got pads today. We're excited, trying to get a little bit better. I'm done talking about the vaccinations.
So he flat out volunteered that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Well, I blame. I'm going to blame. I'm going to put that on the media relations. I'm going to blame them for they keep saying to him, "Zim, stop talking about it," and he finally said, "Okay." And the thing that's interesting is I don't think Zim said anything out of turn.
No,
I really don't. I don't think he really even said anything all that controversial, to tell you the truth.
Not really.
But that is one of the open questions that I think, there's a couple regrets. That's one from the interview. And the other is not getting him to follow through on where he was going after the Aaron Rodgers. I asked the Aaron Rodgers question.
Yeah, you almost
and that's
had him.
Okay.
We'll get it one day.
We'll have to see. Emailer Steve, listening in River Falls, do we know he's offering a potential theory here? What doesn't agree may mean Kirk already had COVID, maybe. Do we know if Cousins has already had a case of COVID-19 at some point? If he has, they may feel that he's already immune to COVID, and thus the protocol shouldn't apply to him. The NFL policy, though, is that they apply to anyone who has not had the vaccine. The docs I listen to suggest that at least one shot of vaccine is still a good idea for someone who's had a prior infection. Maybe someone should tell Kirk that. I think Knocker has said go through the entire regimen, not just one shot, even if you've had COVID. To my we've never had any indication that he has it, that he has already had COVID-19. Has there been?
No.
To your knowledge?
No, because as he said a couple of months ago or whenever it was, I'm going to keep my health information private when he was asked if he was vaccinated.
So
I'm fascinated to see. Tomorrow we'll be playing Kirk Cousins bites. Yeah, I'm curious to see how he handles it and what he says, because he is going to be put under the microscope again.
And it is confirmed that he will be able to come back tomorrow, correct?
Zimmer confirmed that.
Yes.
And then when asked,
all the quarterbacks are coming back tomorrow.
Not Mond, I don't think.
Oh, Mond, not yet. Okay.
Because he was a positive test.
That's true.
But the close contacts are they're coming back. And that was the other time when he was brief is, do you expect Kirk back? Yeah, tomorrow. And then Nate Stanley, too, and he just shook his head. Yes. That was it.
Yeah, Nate Stanley's not going to be back here long.
I wouldn't think.
I don't think. It's
not with Cookus tearing it up.
Cookus is intriguing. He's got an arm on him.
He does.
He's got a little bit of an arm. He's got a little bit of swagger is what I'm being told.
Now, do you think Zim's excited to get the quarterbacks back? Here's Courtney Cronin's tweet from 35 minutes ago. Offense looks completely out of sync. Cook and Browning both fumbled. Offensive line got scolded for not finishing blocks in 11-on-11 moments ago. Danny Etling, who now appears to be the number 2 QB, just overthrew a receiver on an out route on a play where he would have been sacked. I love training camp
tweets. Then I think we may have a couple of clues there as to why Zim might have been cranky.
That was before practice.
Oh, this was before.
Yeah, heaven forbid how he's going to be now. God forbid what's going on there now.
So the chances of calling Hagan and saying, hey, Can we get a quick, just a 5-minute follow-up by phone with Zim? Unlikely, you think, at this point?
What would be a better reaction? Hagen's reaction to that or the Steelers PR guy when you didn't ask Terry Bradshaw about his divorce when you were working in Dallas?
There's so many regrets.
And you had to go back. Did you end up going back to get it?
Well, I didn't go back. I was still there, but I basically, what I did was I went back to the media relations guy and said, I need some more time with him. And they said,
for what?
You're out of your mind.
You had an hour in his room, right?
I don't blame them in that case. I was stuck because that was like I said, my first assignment with a new boss, a very intimidating boss, until we figured out that he was easily, we could easily handle him. But then we don't know that. You're a kid.
Yeah.
I would have, what year was this? This was 82? 81.
81.
So I'm 25 years old, and it's my first big job, and I'm going, I can't. I got to go back and ask, or I got to at least ask if I can get back to his dorm room. That's how different age it is.
Right.
You were allowed to go to a player's dorm room to interview him. That was even pre-COVID. That's in this day and age isn't even close to happening.
No.
Let's get a pause in here. Bradshaw and Brian inbox is open. Some interesting emails have indeed come in. We'll review those. And when we come back, we'll go in a little different direction. And we will offer you, in my view, persuasive emotional evidence why all art in all its forms.
This message is brought to you by Wonder Wellness Cannabis Gummies. Where is your journey to wellness taking you today? Wonder offers the convenience of effects-forward, low-dose gummies to take you there. Relax, laugh, or focus. It's your choice. It's cannabis in control. Discover the wonder of cannabis and wellness. Visit us at wonderwellness.co. These products are intended for persons 21 plus in Illinois. Individual experiences may vary.
You didn't.
Yep.
I thought you learned your lesson.
I guess not.
Dad, the vultures are back.
Okay, kids, you know the drill. Windows up.
Gone too far looking for a good deal on gas? Try Price Match, only from BP Me Rewards at participating BP and Amoco stations. Learn more at bp.com/best price.
The Fan.
You'd think at some point that those of us who have followed the career of Bill Murray closely, in some cases very closely, that there's nothing left that we don't already know. There's not any significant nugget that we would not have gleaned after following his career very closely, decade after decade. And then every once in a while, you're reminded that, believe it or not, there's something that you didn't know. Something rather eye-opening. And I don't know exactly where Bill Murray was when he made the comments we're about to play. It almost looks like a press conference kind of a setting.
Right, a movie junket
Maybe
type
a
thing.
movie junket thing. I think he's got somebody to his immediate left and somebody to his immediate right. And Murray is not the kind of guy, because he's, through much of his career before his acting took off, was a comedian, right? He's a funny man. This guy's going to put a smile on your face. Saturday Night Live fame. And then even as he developed into a really good actor on the big screen, not just doing comedy, but doing other things eventually, not sure still you'd think of him as a real introspective guy who wanted to give you much of that. He's still the guy who you're seeing shots at him at a Cubs game the year that they're going to the World Series, in the crowd celebrating, or he's on the broadcast, up in the booth leading the seventh inning stretch. Take me out to the ball game, that kind of guy. The rip roaring, the guy who would show up at people's weddings,
Right.
crash them,
Yeah.
and be the funny man.
Just hang out.
Hang out, want to be a part of it. Might show up at a bar and say, I'm going to be a bartender for the next 3 hours. But beyond all that, we're reminded that apparently there is an introspective side. And he offered up a comment that we want to play back for you about a time when Bill Murray was in a very different place, mentally and apparently physically. Let's listen.
Well, I think it would be back when I started acting in Chicago. I wasn't very good, and I remember my first experience on the stage. I was so bad I just walked out on the street and started walking. And I walked for a couple of hours, and I realized I'd walked the wrong direction. Not just the wrong direction in terms of where I live, but the wrong direction in terms of a desire to stay alive. And so this may be a little bit not completely true, but it's pretty true that I walked. I then thought, well, if I'm going to die where I am, I may as well just go over towards the lake, and maybe I'll float for a while after I'm dead. So I walked over towards the lake, and as I got there, I realized I'd hit Michigan Avenue, and I thought, well, Michigan Avenue, that runs north too, and so I started walking north, and I ended up in front of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I just walked inside, and I didn't feel like I had any place being there, and they used to ask you for a donation, you know, when you walk into a museum, and I just walked right through because I was ready to die, and pretty much dead, and I walked in, and there's a painting there, and I don't even know who painted it, but I think it's called the Song of the Lark, and it's a woman working in a field, and there's a sunrise behind her, and I've always loved this painting, and I saw it that day, and I just thought, well, look, there's a girl who doesn't have a whole lot of prospects, but the sun's coming up anyway, and she's got another chance at it. So I think that gave me some sort of feeling that I too am a person and get another chance every day the sun comes up.
Wow. I don't know, again, how old that is, how new it is. It's become viral. A lot of people have been listening to it and watching it as well. Pretty impressive. And it does remind me of the old cliche that you never know, as silly as it seems, as trivial as it seems, for someone who at that point, Bill Murray, seemed to be dealing with some significant mental issues. And there's been a lot of talk in recent time, certainly during the Olympics, about mental health, that you never know what might start you back down a better direction. It seems ridiculous that a song or a motion picture or an acting performance by somebody else or a painting could have that kind of impact that Murray said had on him that day in terms of what it represents. Because a lot of it with art is obviously there's the intention of the artist, and then there's what any individual might extract from either watching that performance, listening to that song, or taking a look at the painting, right? And for him, it was just a ray of hope. So it triggered something in him. So for people who wonder why we champion art in all its forms on this show and believe in art in all its forms on this show and the potential healing power of that, not to mention the entertainment value, here's a good example of it. It's not always going to be this weighty, but you never know. By the way, for the record, the Song of the Lark was painted in 1884 And it is indeed part of the collection at the Art Institute of Chicago. It was painted by a man named Jules Breton. I may be mispronouncing that name. Breton. And if accuracy matters, this is an example of interpretation. The sun is actually setting in the piece. It's a beautiful piece of art.
Yep.
The sun is actually setting. But again, it's another example of but for him, it needed to be rising. Right? For his interpretation, is like, sun's coming up again, and it's another day for this woman who, as he puts it, didn't necessarily seem to have the best prospects. That, again, is his interpretation, but that's art. That's what makes it so compelling, I think, to most of us, and for different people, it's different forms. There apparently was a novel written by a very accomplished American author named Willa Cather, that's called The Song of the Lark. And the title is, the origin comes from the painting of the same name. I don't know if it's directly referenced or stolen, not exactly sure, but apparently there's some connection there as well. And given all the talk we've had about mental health, it is, I think, a very helpful reminder that even accomplished actors, comedians, athletes, whatever. But folks Bill Murray has had one iconic run in the popular culture. Fair to say? Without, to this point, knock on wood, any significant falls from grace, right? I mean, that's the thing. It seems like the machinery is going to eat you up and swallow you eventually when they elevate you to that place.
Yep.
Somehow he's had enough of that roguish
he stayed out of
quality that he seemed to be able to avoid all of that, at least so far. But the fact that somebody that accomplished once upon a time was at a different place, that in of itself might be quite therapeutic and quite illuminating for the average rube who is down on their luck or their life or whatever the case may be. So it's very, I think it can be a very therapeutic item. Now, I found out about it via Rex Chapman had a tweet, former basketball player, who has now become a huge Twitter guy. And he actually is retweeting something from somebody named Todd Spence. And Todd Spence flat out says, this painting, that Bill Murray talks about the painting that stopped him from committing suicide after being asked if there were a moment how art has made a difference in his life. Now, is he projecting a little bit there? Was Murray being literal? That he was close to wanting to ending his life? Or was he just in the mode of thinking, I'm not sure I want to live anymore? Everybody can make their own decision about that. I don't know if Murray got into more detail about how close he actually was to it. But it certainly appeared that a light bulb went off in his head, that it was just enough that day, walking into that famous art museum and looking at that particular painting as one of his favorites was enough of a trigger to turn him back in a different direction, which I find inspirational. Now, in the Chapman quote, he says, if Bill Murray can talk openly about his struggles with confidence and being in a bad mental frame of mind as a young professional and have people accept it at face value, why can't Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles do the same? And my answer to Rex Chapman is simple. They can. I don't believe anybody rational that I've paid attention to believe that Osaka and Biles can't be accepted at face value when they talk about struggles and confidence and being in bad mental frame of mind. You're kind of, to me, he's kind of creating a straw man here in his effort to support Osaka and Biles. Because, again, if you're being fair, I don't believe... Well, I guess you could say, yeah, Murray admitted that as soon as the performance was over, he walked out of it. And I don't know, maybe he didn't go back to doing whatever that kind of show was. But these aren't completely analogous. I don't think there's anybody left in 2021 who says that these subjects cannot be explored The issue, the question is always going to be, when are you acting upon that instinct? And I don't want to go back through the debate about Biles because it's I'm almost past it at this point. But whatever you think of it, it can't be described as simply being able to having the opportunity to talk about being in a bad mental frame of mind. It was also how they acted upon it. Not, again, here to assume that you have to criticize it, but I'd say that's not the same thing. It's the same as when we were people talking about Michael Jordan. He took time off. He needed to regroup. He retired from basketball in the middle of his career, still in the prime of his career. But that's still not the same as retiring or, skipping an event the way that Biles did. So if you want to continue to champion Biles, I'm all for it. Keep going for it. But don't make up analogies that don't even make sense in your effort to bring those two into it. Bill Murray spinning a yarn at a point where he certainly was not, I don't think he's saying he walked out of the middle of, what was the movie he did that was set largely in Japan with Scarlett Johansson? It'll come to me in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
He was tremendous in that film, and that was one of the movies where he became more than a comedian, more than a comic actor. I don't think what he was saying in the middle of that, he decided to walk out of it because he just couldn't handle it anymore. Would that make him a bad person? Not necessarily, but you're trying too hard.
Lost in translation?
That's the one, thank you. I think in your effort to defend Osaka and Biles, when you use analogies that are faulty, that are just, fundamentally flawed. Nevertheless, I'm glad he brought it to my attention because I saw it and I found the soundbite tremendous. What did you make of it?
Well, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes about every career, but certainly like show business, where they say the overnight success took a decade to build. I think a lot of us, we see the finished product I think of Josh Broughton, when he said to you, this is the first time. Josh Broughton's been in Hollywood for 20 years. This is the first time a show that he has worked on has gotten picked up for a second season. He mentioned that. And so he might be on his way to something completely different. This might run the next 10 years, but all he did was work for 20 and did Spin City here and the movie with Will Ferrell there and a play in Los Angeles there. And I've just always liked that quote about the overnight success took 10 years to build.
Absolutely.
And it fits for every single career that you're trying to build.
We see, like you say, the end product, and we assume, that guy came out of nowhere.
Right. And sometimes that happens.
And it does happen.
Sometimes it's your first audition and you nail it and you're natural and it's on. But more often than not, it's not that way.
More often than not, you're grinding. You're grinding day to day, and to a certain extent, then you end up getting. And there's a lot of people who grind even longer, and they never get the payoff.
Right.
And eventually, they may have to leave. They may have to move on with the rest of their life. But it was, and again, the beauty of Murray is even in his telling of the story. He doesn't overtell it. He's not. How do I say it? It's that deadpan, understated Murray voice, right? But he's talking about some pretty damned weighty stuff and even kind of trying to chuckle his way through. The guys around him, I think, are so nervous about it. They're kind of chuckling through it as he's talking about taking his life. Mm-hmm. Not because I think they're mocking him, but because it's Bill Murray telling the story. And at that point, maybe they're not even sure he means it, or they're not even sure where the thing is going. It was very well told, a brilliant story and an important lesson for everybody. And so this will be when people say to us, why are you talking movies? Why are you talking about the Mona Lisa? Why are you talking about Casablanca? Why are you talking about the Allman Brothers or Paul McCartney? You don't have to like any of those. It isn't necessarily about those individuals, because all that kind of art, who you like, who you doesn't, is about taste. But this is why, because it moves people. We're all just trying to get by day to day, finding stuff that will make it easier to get to the next day, or a little bit more interesting to get to the next day. And that's what a lot of this stuff, if you really absorb it and give yourself a chance to enjoy it, that's what it can do. And that was, I think, a really good example of exactly that. The Art Institute of Chicago, the place. And apparently that painting still has a very prominent place at the Art Institute of Chicago. And who cares if it was a sunrise or a sunset? It could be whatever you want it to be, right?
Eye of the beholder.
That's the beauty.
However it hits you.
We'll come back with a very special, speaking of nose to the grindstone, speaking of the Olympics, speaking of continuing to forge ahead, I'm hoping this woman also gets the credit she deserves for the approach she took at her sports moment of truth.
This message is brought to you by Wonder Wellness Cannabis Gummies. Where is your journey to wellness taking you today? Wonder offers the convenience of effects-forward, low-dose gummies to take you there. Relax, laugh, or focus. It's your choice. It's cannabis in control. Discover the wonder of cannabis and wellness. Visit us at wonderwellness.co. These products are intended for persons 21 plus in Illinois. Individual experiences may vary.
You didn't.
Yep.
I thought you learned your lesson.
I guess not.
Dad, the vultures are back.
Okay, kids, you know the drill. Windows up.
Gone too far looking for a good deal on gas? Try Price Match, only from BP Me Rewards at participating BP and Amoco stations. Learn more at bp.com/best price.
And the Fan.
The Fan's coverage of Vikings training camp is presented by Minnesota Lottery. Get pumped. It's game time.
That's correction time. I thought I had done my due diligence on the Song of the Lark, the painting we were just discussing. And apparently, for decades, there has been an open debate over whether the scene in the Song of the Lark, the sun is rising or setting.
I like that.
To the point where, according to QUORA.com, isn't that a thing about search for questions, people, and topics? The claim here is that, according to the Art Institute of Chicago, Song of the Lark, deemed, by the way, the most popular painting in America in a poll conducted in 1934.
I saw that.
A young peasant woman stands silently in the flat fields of the artist's native Normandy as the sun rises, listening to the song of a distant lark. That's about as definitive as we're going to get. So I misspoke. I'd found a couple other spots saying, that's a sunset right there. It's, the end of the workday, that kind of thing. But again, does it really matter? What matters is that it took Bill Murray's breath away. Bumper to Bumper is the name of the show. Don't forget, Kessler is scheduled to join us little less than an hour from now. Can you find the Bumper to Bumper seal of approval?
Yep, give me a sec.
It's the Bumper to Bumper seal of approval.
Are you familiar with an American pole vaulter named Sandy Morris?
I don't think I am. I feel like I should be.
No, I'm not here to say it's not a name I was necessarily familiar with. The pole vault community might be. She apparently was born in suburban Chicago, Downers Grove, Illinois. That's a town probably Bill Murray knows all about. And Bill Murray would probably be interested in this particular story. Probably not getting a lot of attention, though, because she didn't get a medal. And this is where we're frauds on, well, it's not just about, really isn't just about winning, or it's about, getting one of the medals. When it is, over and over again. The stories that fascinate us the most are those who, finish with a gold medal, silver, or bronze. And that's what we end up writing about. That's what we end up largely celebrating. Even though we say it shouldn't be about that, over and over again, that's what gets more attention. Because if that were not the case, this story would be getting a lot more attention that it indeed is receiving. It's why we talk out of both sides of our mouths. We have the same thing. I have a couple emailers who are continuing with, and you've brought this up before, the notion that, Any athlete that pulls out, they don't owe anybody any kind of explanation. And it sounds cool to say. It sounds wonderful. It sounds really strong. But it's not real. Because if they are athletes who over a period of time have garnered a great deal of fame and fortune for attaining a high level, then people get interested in them. Perhaps more than they should. And networks get interested in them. And so what they do is then they promote them as being, here's why you should watch our event. You've got to see this athlete perform. And guess what? People start believing it. They go, oh, I'm psyched. Can't wait for tonight. I'm going to watch Simone Biles or whoever else live. And then what? Then, for reasons that only she knows and that she believes and that are important to her, it's all that matters, she's out. And people wonder why. According to this emailer, she has no reason to tell it, which isn't living in the real world. If you build people up to this place and you make them the center of attention, then it's only human that people who aren't necessarily ready to savage her are going to be curious about what happened. It's such a silly, unrealistic, it's not a real world notion. It's, again, sounds great to say. It sounds really kick-ass to say it, but it doesn't really jive with what is set up, what the backdrop is before that athlete makes that decision. Doesn't mean she has to apologize, or he has to apologize for that decision, but the notion that they don't owe anybody an explanation about anything. If it's Little League, you're right. But if it's international TV, an event that for 2 months or 6 months leading up to it has been built around promoting that individual, it's kind of silly to say, well, I don't understand why anybody would want to know what happened. Not our business. It's her business. It's you're living in some kind of a fantasy cinematic world. And where that is, I don't know. But I digress. This is out of the Chicago Tribune. I credit Stacy St. Clair. Now, this is local angle, so maybe that's the only reason they're doing the story, but it's a damn good story. American pole vaulter Sandy Morris's quest for a second Olympic medal ended Monday on a rain-soaked runway after her pole broke and her hip flexor hyperextended. She made 3 more attempts despite the injury. Barely made it off the ground, ended up writhing on the mat in obvious pain each time. After faltering on her third and final try, a tearful Morris hugged her fellow competitors, walked off the field with a medical team. This is what she wrote on Insta. My hip flexor was shooting pain down my leg and clicking, and my quad was cramping in reaction. I had no chance to make it down the runway for another jump, but I tried anyway. That should be, as far as I'm concerned, celebrated as well. She was true to herself. She knew she had no chance, but she was there, and she felt like, even with the danger of pole vault, that can get a little sticky too. The injury coming after heavy rain temporarily suspended the pole vault event at the Olympic Stadium. Many athletes struggling with the slick conditions, officials ending the qualification round early. By the way, she's the reigning Olympic silver medalist. She's 29. She easily clears that height when healthy. She was about to make her first attempt when the rain picked up and vaulting was indeed halted. When it really opens up like that, it's really dangerous. But you're probably not going to hear that much about it, right? Because, well, she didn't really go anywhere with it. Because we say we're about more than who wins and who finishes second, who finishes third. But in the end, we only have so much time. We only have so many column inches, even online. And so we end up concentrating on those individuals. And I would say that's a hell of an Olympic story. She didn't even come close to doing anything, but she said, I'm here, and I'm not going to be satisfied if I finish. Doesn't make what Simone Biles did wrong. Simone Biles was in a very different mental frame of mind. But this is also, I would say, worth celebrating. Even if I would say there may have been some risk of injury. If you want to use the logic of it's up to her, it's up to her. And she did it. An Olympic story that will not get a lot of attention that is worthy of at least a minute or two here on this very special artsy-fartsy edition.
The Fan.
Bumper to Bumper is the name of the program. Kessler will join after today's edition of the Top 5 at 5. Look at this. Pardon the interruption, lead item. Vaccine hesitancy hurting Vikes. We're getting that national attention that we so often crave.
Spotlight is on us.
But in this case, we're getting it for, sadly enough, all of the wrong reasons. I also received an email that indicates I am clearly, Guardsy, not a great lark mind.
Okay.
The painting is called Song of the Lark, correct?
Yep.
Song of the Lark.
What is a lark? Is that a bird?
It is a bird. I don't know much of what kind of bird it is, and maybe that's part of the problem. Because emailer Mary writes, larks sing in the morning.
There you go.
So it has to be a sunrise. Do larks never sing at sunset?
They must go to bed early.
They go to bed early? Is that what they do?
Apparently.
If we have a great lark mind out there, let us know. Bradshaw and Bryan inbox is open. Booth, BOOTH at KFAN.com. Larry Mondello guy on the weighty question of what is art? The Murray story's great, but what he left out of the story is that after being inspired by the painting at the Art Institute of Chicago, he walked out of the museum and saw the giant lion statues on the steps, and he thought, hey, we can't have lion statues. The Lions are our conference rivals. I mean, why do you think we dominate the Vikings? The street outside their stadium is called Chicago Avenue.
That's right.
That's a callback. On another note, the story reminds me of when my two oldest daughters were young. They were probably about 7 and 3, and they were coloring and drawing pictures. The older daughter wasn't real impressed with the younger's skills, and so on her paper she wrote, "This is art." And on her sister's she wrote, "This is not art." She didn't realize that we can't decide what are his two other people. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Is that a typo? Larry Mondello guy, that might be a typo of some sort, or I'm missing the joke, which I often do with Larry Mondello guy.
Horned larks, Dan, sing a delicate musical song, particularly in the early morning.
But not exclusively.
Well, I don't know.
Could be at sunset.
Could be.
Okay.
But as early as an hour to an hour and a half before sunrise. So the lark gets up early. You want to talk about the early bird getting the worm? The lark's getting the worms.
That seems to indicate, though, that the lark is singing before sunrise.
But it might have a long set.
The sun's already rising.
It might have a long set. I mean, it might have a lot to get off
Just
its
like
chest.
my questions. It might be a longer song.
A little bit of a wind-up, yeah.
Okay.
You and the lark might have a lot in common. I'm not sure.
That may be fair. Emailer Adam, you're permitted to wonder of a person's reason to step aside. The individual is not in any way, shape, or form obligated to satisfy your desire. People want to vilify Biles as a quitter or acclaim her as a hero. The truth is neither. She is merely a person who acted in her own best self-interest, which is what most of us would do. She's not responsible for the expectations anyone has. Yes, she's been marketed, but she's not responsible for anyone's reaction to that. She's an individual. And there's nothing more important than that. I don't even know where to begin. Yes, she's an individual. We understand all of that. I left out, although we've talked about it before, where I think he's 100% wrong. She does owe her. She's a member of a team, so to that extent, in fairness, no matter how legitimate the reason is, I would argue that as a member of a team, just like here, if I decide to leave during a show or I want to take a long leave of absence for whatever reason, I'd have to explain it, right? I'd have to give some. My bosses would rightly say, "Well, what's going on with you?" Not necessarily that they would jump on me, but there'd be some obligation there. I don't know what world these individuals are living in, as if the whole point of this is to vilify her. I've been more in the camp that I'm not ready to raise her to the heroic status that some other people have. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. And I bring up the pole vaulter just because she will not get the same attention for making her choice, which in her case was, I got no chance, but this is what I want to do. I like that. I also like that instinct. But the idea that in the real world, and believe it or not, the Olympics are the real world. It's not a job in the more professional sense, but it's an obligation at the point where you accept the opportunity and work your way through the opportunity. That the idea that when I have to say anything to anybody, I don't know what world some of these individuals live in. I think it's because they feel protective. And as I've said before, I honestly believe, sadly, there's something a little bit paternalistic about some of this and a little bit patronizing about the idea that we have to protect her more than we feel like we might have to protect him. And I don't even think people are being human and honest with themselves if they pretend to not be curious. I'm sorry. It sounds good to say, don't care, doesn't matter. But I don't think you're being honest with yourself, given the unusual nature of the circumstance. I got emails from a bunch of athletes who wondered, who weren't ripping her, but were absolutely wondering. And I don't even know how we ended up getting back to her. When we were talking about art, and then we were talking about the pole vaulter, who will get almost zero attention for, to me, also embodying the spirit of the event. That may be a romantic notion for some people. Does she owe me another jump? I'd never even heard of her till I heard of this. No, I like her also being true to herself. And to me, the event, if again we're honest, why do we elevate the Olympics? Why do people care about watching the Olympics? Well, if our emailers were honest, they'd say it's because of individuals rising up to remarkable athletic levels, right? Often fending off challenges of other competitors, challenges of injury, challenges of frustration, whatever a case may be. What somebody said this, it's your tennis guy. This was shortly, I think, before he destroyed a racket. Basically said,
Novak Djokovic,
you can't take pressure out of sports.
Right.
That's the point of it. And that's what's disingenuous to me about people who don't want to acknowledge that we build this machinery in which that's what piques our curiosity, keeps us interested in sports is, man, that's a tough spot to be in. How'd they handle that? Not necessarily to destroy them if they don't, but to say that's what makes this worth watching. Otherwise, we're back to go down the street and watch a Little League game, because you could say that's in its purer form. But this isn't about the spotlight of the world is on you. I think that's what he was trying. Your tennis guy, Djokovic,
Novak Djokovic.
That's what he's saying is you can't. The idea of we're going to have to find a way to eliminate the pressure, so individuals don't get to a place where they are. Maybe feel like they have to quit or they have to take a break or they're frustrated or whatever. It's like, well, no, then you've defeated the purpose of what brings us, if we're honest with ourselves, to marvel at what takes place in these events in the first place.
Billie Jean King wrote a book about it. Pressure is a privilege. That's what she called it. That's how she tried to compartmentalize pressure.
Right.
Because it's for... So I was very interested in what she was going to say about the Simone Biles thing and Naomi Osaka in general. The pressure is a privilege, and she's been pretty much down the middle on it.
Right.
But if this is true, if people are saying nobody owes anything in, we don't really care, we don't need to invest, NBC would probably like that because they are, I'm guessing, spending a lot of money learning all these backstories, coming up to Lakeville to interview Reagan Smith, going down to Houston to catch up with Biles. Like every 2 minutes, we're getting a backstory on whether it's the primetime coverage or the live coverage. We certainly got it a lot during the trials, too. Like we get told these stories the entire way. Suni Lee and her family and her dad. We got told that story a bunch.
Yes.
It's a rich story. It's an interesting story. It makes the whole thing even richer and fuller. But if people are saying we don't need to know that, don't care about it, then I guess just turn it on at 7 and we'll know when the game starts.
As I said, people who they think they're being smarter, the smartest people in the room, but they're not being honest. Even you mentioned Lee. I said this when she ascended and won. The angle, what was the angle that was presented to us? Wow. You want to talk about heat and pressure? She didn't even know she's going to compete in this thing. And now she's being asked to carry the torch, no pun intended, for the United States. That's what made it more compelling to us. So the very thing that we say we got to not make a big deal of and discourage is because of what happened to Biles, we've already turned it on the next competitor and used it to elevate the performance to a very special place. Real quick here. Luke Longley is a name. You mentioned that I might need to reintroduce the name to our audience because it's a name I know well. You kind of know, I think. But
big time.
The kids might not know much about Luke Longley. Luke Longley was a number 1 draft choice for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Number 7 overall.
That's true. He was number 7. We picked him the year after we picked Felton, right? Didn't we pick Felton first and then Luke, or was it Luke then Felton? We picked him in consecutive years.
Yes, and I remember...
Which was part of the frustration.
As a young kid thinking that was weird.
1991 he was picked. Round 1, 7th overall pick.
So after Felton.
So that would be after Felton. That's what I thought.
Because 92 was Leitner.
And he ends up being the first player from Australia, Australian-born, to make it to the National Basketball Association. And a listener brought to my attention that apparently there's a new 30 for 30 style documentary on Luke Longley and his travails from, growing up in Australia, growing up taller than everybody else and more gangly than everybody else, fashioning a career there, and then going on to, where did he play? Was it New Mexico?
Yes.
I think he played for New Mexico.
The Lobos.
And then he gets drafted by the Wolves and ultimately ends up winning 3 rings with Michael Jordan as a member of the Chicago Bulls. That was after he was traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we're going to play, about a 2-minute part of the documentary in which Luke fondly looks back.
And his ex-wife.
That's right. At the time that he and she spent in the frozen tundra known as Minnesota. And I thought the Longley devotees out there might get a kick out of it.
When I got to Minnesota, we were bad. We won 17 games out of, I think, 82 the first year I was there. And that was the most miserable year of my life. Hated it.
I moved up there, and it was the frozen tundra. It was so cold. I'd never seen that kind of cold. And left my family, my friends, my business.
Teammates, I got on with a few of them, but there wasn't a lot of love in the locker room. It was competitive, which is good. Competitive is fine, but I didn't feel it at all. I wasn't enjoying it. People don't share the ball. People don't defend as well for each other. And all that sort of stuff was what really appealed to me more than whether or not we won or lost, funnily enough.
What's up, man? You your own movie again? What's up, man? You getting all this camera time. Come on, share our brothers, man. This is Crocodile Longley.
They weren't sure about his Australian laid-back attitude, and I think it took a bit of his confidence.
What Luke Longley? You like Luke? No! What do you think of Luke Longley?
Well, let's see. Clumsy comes to mind right offhand.
He shows his emotion, and I could see him. He was running down the court, and it was heavy. I knew that he was just really hating it.
My game from college didn't translate in the NBA. I hated it, but they had given me $1 million signing bonus. I was the first Australian to make it, I had to succeed. I went back at it and sort of redesigned myself a little bit, and I said, no, that wasn't good enough. Let's have another run at this. Which tools shall I pick up and beat myself up with? And so I re-engaged in the weight room and even watched videotape of how the good guys were doing it.
Boom.
Picked up a few more tools, developed a little hook shot that I didn't have. I started to play with more confidence. And the general manager of the team, Trader Jack, they call him, because there's always trading players. So he was rubbing his hands together saying, great, we can finally get something for this Australian kid who hasn't been very good, because he's finding some juice and we can trade for him.
That, in a nutshell, not only says a lot, part of my desire to play it was not necessarily about being all that curious about Luke, but it just so nicely encapsulated part of the history of the Minnesota Timberwolves, did it not? They didn't like sharing. I mean, Luke was not a perfect player. Even he, I think, acknowledges in that soundbite, that part of the documentary, he had a long way to go. And he did get better, and he looked better when he left to go to a better team, obviously, where he didn't have to be 7th pick overall in the draft. He just had to be another complementary piece, right? He just had to be a big body for the Bulls, basically, in the...
He had to take the first, little pass in the triangle and get the thing moving.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And he was a good passer. He was always a good passer. But it's so remindful for those of us who are old enough to remember how bad it was, how he now, looking back on it, just nails it. There weren't players I was particularly happy to be around. It's a miserable environment. I didn't like sharing the ball. Nobody played defense. And he's pretty much describing a basketball Hades is what he's bad. And that was very, very true. Do you know who we got in the Luke Longley deal from the Chicago Bulls?
Trader Jack
McCloskey.
Stacey King had to be involved in that
Stacey King was the main piece in that deal. And as I recall it,
That's crazy. I remember that.
We got King for Longley and a 1995 second-round draft choice.
Wonder who the Bulls took.
That's a good question. I don't have any idea at all. By the way, King lasted 68 games through a season and a half with Minnesota. His career averages with Minnesota, 7 points and 4 rebounds per game before he was waived out of the league. And Longley does get 3 rings.
Didn't he try to fail his physical, Stacey King?
No, that was the Punisher. That was Andrew Lang.
Andrew Lang.
That's that was the Leitner deal, wasn't it?
I think
to Atlanta.
So.
Yeah. Andrew Lang tried to flunk his physical because he didn't want to play here. And if he'd seen the Longley documentary, it would be hard to blame him. Because he probably knew what Longley had not said out loud until much more recently in this documentary. He didn't need to wait for the doc to come out, probably.
By the way, in the doc, when they were showing the frozen tundra, and they make it as cold as possible, and there's like a snowplow.
Right.
I feel like they had a train running. They had like the train bells. Our light rail wasn't up in 1991 or 92. I mean, which train were they showing? I think they took
You think they took some liberties?
Because the train bell sounds a lot colder.
Yeah, that's true.
It feels like that's Chicago. Or maybe they were training them in Chicago and they used that bell. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. You might be right. They might have had a little artistic license there. Stacey King. I think I've told the story before. I welcomed Stacey King to town with a really vicious column, as I recall it, because I was not a Stacey King fan at all. And eventually, I don't know who was talking to him. Somebody was talking about, he said that in all of his time in the NBA, there were only 2 writers he literally despised. And one of them was Sam Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Hall of Fame writer, Chicago Tribune.
Yep.
Now I think writing for the Bulls website, and it does a lot of. He's like an NBA historian, basically. We've had him on from time to time. And the other was me. And I remember sweating because the night that his first game, I think he scored like 12 points in the first quarter or something. They fed him. They just force fed him the ball, and he had a little talent in the low post, if you'll recall it. He had a little bit of ability, but he didn't guard anybody. Couldn't guard you, and was just a waste of time. But that was the time where Trader Jack was desperate to try to just bring some kind of juice in. And what you end up doing is compound mistakes by making 2 or 3 more mistakes.
Yeah, you let it beat you twice.
From which you never end up recovering. Top 5 at 5 will include
An update from Vikings practice today, an update in Gopher basketball recruiting as it pertains to the 2022 class. And we talked a lot in NBA free agency about the West Coast, what's going on out there. Why don't we go to the East Coast and see what our old friend Tom Thibodeau's putting together at Madison Square Garden?
Well,
coming to a theater near you.
He better keep building because that Eastern Conference suddenly looks loaded. Kessler.
This is The Fan. Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5, driven by Borton Volvo. Safety has never looked so good.
I have one question to start the top 5 at 5 with.
Yeah.
Has Kirk Cousins gotten his shot?
You're asking me?
You got a lot of sources over there at TCU Performance Center. Has anything changed to our knowledge? Other than he's supposed to show up, he's supposed to be available he'll be cleared for practice, we think, tomorrow.
That's where I wanted to start.
Unless, what if he comes in tomorrow morning, he takes another test, and he's positive?
Then he's out for a while.
That's the other question.
What's the protocol there?
What is the protocol there? If you're, no, I guess we don't know what the protocol is for the player. Not the player who comes into contact with somebody who tests positive for COVID, but for the positive COVID-19 player, right?
I'm sure it's been written down and reported.
We just have forgotten.
And we have just either forgotten or we don't know.
Well, your eyes glaze over at some point because there's 100%. So many protocols and so many changes and so many different policies depending on what the business is, what the government is, what the agency is, etc.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I just printed out to try to read a Nicole Auerbach story from The Athletic. She covers college sports.
Yes.
And she has talked with basically every league in college football about what their protocols are going to be because we don't even know those yet. Like for college football, we don't even know.
That's a good point.
Like we don't know what the Big Ten's policy is going to be. Last year it was you missed 3 weeks. And we don't know how that's going to affect non-conference games. Like do they all have to be the same because we're theoretically going to play non-conference games? Like nobody knows. Camp started for the Gophers today.
Today?
Yes. Their first practice. And I don't even know, if someone tested positive today, what does that mean? Are they even testing every day? There's so much stuff we don't know. So to answer your question, I'm going to read this story, and by the end of it, it's not an oral history, thankfully.
But it's lengthy.
It's 6 pages.
Oh, man.
And so I'm going to go through all these leagues, and by the end of it, I'm probably not going to be any smarter.
Lottie Diva.
I'm probably not even going to know.
Yeah.
Speaking of TCO, speaking of Mike Zimmer, speaking of Egan.
I'm done talking about vaccinations, so we're out of that business. So fire away.
So the questions then came, and they were mostly football, including...
So nobody tested him on that?
Not in the part that I watched.
The Jackals, they still, 4 questions in, they go, I know what you said about that, but I have to ask you this one thing.
Yeah.
So we got the last COVID questions in. We feel honored.
For now.
I
watched about 5.5 minutes of it today, and none of it came up. He was very short today. He was not as expansive as he's been. Certainly not as expansive as he was with you on the Vikings radio network, KFA and Perch yesterday, which people can podcast on the Purple On Demand channel of your iHeartRadio
app. We can't be
app.
mad at us because it was an affable conversation.
No.
It wasn't like
but I think we got the last one.
Yeah, that may be
for now.
And again, I expected we would get that same answer. And I was fully prepared for him saying, Dan, you're exactly right. No. That'd be Leslie Frazier. Basically saying, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. We let's just talk about some other stuff if we can. So I was pleasantly pleased that he was willing to give us that opportunity.
Well, I think he knows because he gives you so much crap about doing it.
That's true.
And that it's the only time.
Yeah.
I think he knows I only have to deal with this once.
So he guilted him into it.
He
knows there's not a second visit during training camp with him, no matter how many times we return to training camp.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, but he was asked, do you expect Kirk, because the betting money was that the quarterbacks that were contact traced out would be back tomorrow. He expects both Kirk Cousins and Nathan Stanley back tomorrow. He gave a yes or a yeah answer on Kirk and then an affirmative head nod on the Nate Stanley answer. Because like I said, he was brief. So that's kind of the newsy part of it. Both of them are expected tomorrow. I would assume QB1 Kirk Cousins talks tomorrow. So we'll be playing a lot of that tomorrow. The Vikings news of the day is that their rookie offensive linemen were both on the practice field. In Darrisaw's case, Christian Darrisaw, first round pick, first time all camp. Wyatt Davis's case, first time in a while. Darrisaw and Davis in pads for the Vikings today. Davis did much more. He was mostly the right guard on the second team offensive line. Darrisaw was held out of the teamwork, and the plan is to hopefully ease him back into the teamwork for the scrimmage at US Bank Stadium on Saturday, which you can hear, by the way, right here on The Fan, broadcast live from there with Meat Sauce and Ron Johnson, noon to 2. But the rookie offensive linemen were both back today. I knew you were going somewhere. It was making me nervous.
This is going to arouse you.
Oh, I saw that.
Phillip Rivers says he has not completely ruled out returning to the National Football League, even though he just retired at the end of the 2020 season.
Well, this is why it's arousing. Late December. Let me get the schedule.
By the way, Carson Wentz is already out from anywhere from they're saying 5 to, I think, 10 weeks because of another foot issue. So that means your Indianapolis Colts, they do not have much going. They do not have much going at all. And wasn't that who... He was with the Colts when he retired,
last
right?
year.
Last year.
And now he's a high school coach.
Was Rivers.
Somewhere. He's a high school coach somewhere. Because I remember he got that job last year, and they were willing to wait for him. Let's just say this, Dan. Let's say the Vikings return from a Monday night game at Soldier Field. December 20th.
December 20th, you say. Wow.
They get back Tuesday, short week. We find out Kirk Cousins is tested positive for COVID-19. So the Vikings enter, they host the Rams.
Right.
Playoff positioning on the line. The Rams with my guy, Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Big game at US Bank Stadium. Then they've got the Packers on the road, and they finish with the Bears. For that stretch, you going to hand it off to Jake Browning? Or are you going to bring in Phillip Rivers for that final 3-game stretch?
Browning? I guess he actually has come back to the pack after looking.
He fumbled today, really apparently, according to Courtney Cronin.
Did he really? That's rare for him.
I know. He never fumbled.
Falling apart now.
But what if, you come back from Chicago, Cousins, it's a primetime game, so he's looked awful. He's come back. He tests positive for COVID.
So
he's
is
out.
Rivers a free agent, though? Can he come back with anybody, or did the Colts have any kind of rights over him?
I think he's a free agent.
Okay.
I think it was a one-year deal.
All right. Okay.
But he said you can't rule it out December or January. If a team comes calling, it's got to be the right fit. Why not?
Who better?
Who says no?
No, I don't think. You got to. You've always been higher on him than me.
Yeah.
But if your backup quarterback is a guy who's literally, we got no one else, as Gessling reminded us, who's taking a snap in a National Football League real game on this roster.
And I know Mountain people are going to tell me just
calm down.
Put Kellen Mond in December.
Calm down.
Let's get Phillip Rivers. Do you think it says something about me that I like erratic quarterbacks that yell at their teammates a lot?
A little bit, although again, you got the added factor here of he's less mobile than Cousins. So you better
that's
have,
a good point. Darrisaw better be up to speed.
You better have established that the pass blocking is better than it's been for the last several years, or you might as well, you'd probably better giving the ball to Kellen Mond. Probably better off giving the ball to Jeff George.
Is he available?
His arm's still strong, is what I heard.
To remind you about what was going on with the offense today, why it might be important that Kirk Cousins get back. They did give Dalvin Cook more direct snaps in the Wildcat formation today. They did that on Saturday night when I was at the passing scrimmage at TCO. The first snap that they did offensively, first handful of snaps, was Dalvin Cook running the Wildcat because Jake Browning was the only guy that they had. He did that apparently a little bit today, so maybe that's a new Clint Kubiak wrinkle that they're in. But here's my favorite Courtney Cronin tweet of the day. Offense looks completely out of sync. Cook and Browning both fumbled. Offensive line got scolded for not finishing blocks in 11-on-11 moments ago. Danny Etling, who now appears to be the number 2 QB, just overthrew a receiver on an out route on a play where he would have been sacked. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln.
And you said that Zim spoke before that practice. So
yes.
Lord knows what it might have been like if he had a briefing afterwards. And maybe, though, this is good because, we've talked about this before. If Zim gets too cocky and gets too nice, maybe that's a bad sign, and they need him to sort of remember, who he is, who he's supposed to be. And let's be honest, it's in about how many weeks? 5 weeks, 4 weeks? We're not even going to remember one practice day from another, right? Other than the COVID stuff, there tends to be bad practice days and good ones. And let's be honest, if you're number one, at least in theory, you're number one in reality, and in theory, you're number 2 quarterback. If they're both not there, then how's anybody supposed to look decent? it's going to catch up with you. Allegedly, if this defense we're actually putting it back together, this defense should be dominating right now, shouldn't it?
It should be.
Yeah.
Yes. We know that Derrick Rose is in New York with Tom Thibodeau, security blanket number 1.
Yes.
I think they just re-signed Taj Gibson as well, security blanket number 2.
Yes.
Joakim Noah's not going to play anymore, otherwise that would be security blanket number 3, right?
Probably true.
And here's the best part. You can't blame Tom Thibodeau for hurting or injuring this player and ruining his career because his career has already been marred by injuries at a couple of different spots. It's Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
Who agreed to a contract buyout this morning, paving the way for Kemba to return home. He's a Madison Square Garden and New York City icon, and he is on his way to play for our guy Tibbs. And Tibbs will probably get 40 minutes out of him, and he won't get hurt.
That's going to be the key to this. There's some people who think they should have, that the Knicks and Tibbs should have gone after, is it Lonzo Ball? Is that the Pelicans Ball? Who just got signed by the Bulls?
Yes, the
That's
original
Lonzo,
Ball. Yes.
not LaMelo, Lonzo.
Correct. Yeah, I get confused.
And there's some people who think that would have made more sense because Lonzo is younger, and the Knicks still need to get younger because they got a long way to make a run for the NBA title. I'm completely torn on Kemba. I worry that doesn't have that much left. Other people still think he does, and that it's just the Celtics fit was lousy. It had more to do with that than it really did any kind of issue that his career is over. But we were kidding about it for years. What did Wolves fans say? God, I wish we could be in the East.
Yeah,
because the West is so loaded. Take a look at what's going on in the Eastern Conference. I mean, you can make the argument that even with the huge moves the Bulls made, they're still a fringe playoff team because there's so many other teams that have kind of emerged, starting with Atlanta. Obviously, you should say starting with Milwaukee, but Atlanta is a team that was an also-ran that has made a move. Obviously, Miami's going to be a factor. Philly's weird because they got to figure out what they're going to do, obviously, with Ben Simmons. The Knicks made a big jump. Are they going to stay there? It's difficult to say. Obviously, the Nets are, front and center there. So suddenly, I'm not sure if we're better off in the East or the West at this point because the East is looking stronger than it's looked in a long, long time.
I think when you're the Wolves, the division, the conference, none of it matters.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
None
of it matters.
Yeah. Unless you can get Stacey King back.
That's true. Yeah. Or Andrew Lang. Get him to pass his physical. Let's wrap up the top 5 at 5 with this. People wanted Minnesota recruits to stay home and play Golden Gopher basketball. And Ben Johnson got his first one for the class of 2022. He's from Park Center. His name is Braden Carrington. 6'4", committed today. You got other breaking news?
No, that's it.
That's the breaking news.
If we get a player, it's breaking news.
Yeah.
Be honest about it.
And he's from Minnesota.
And he's one of us.
So we're 1 for 1 in the 2022.
4-star or 5-star?
I would say 3.
3-star, okay.
He has scholarship offers from Florida, Missouri, right. Seton Hall, among others. Very good shooter.
Okay.
Which we don't know much about around here, unfortunately. That is a priority.
Any level. College or pro, unfortunately.
So he hopefully will fill that void, but congrats to Park Center's own Braden Carrington on committing to the University of Minnesota.
Paige Beckers, apparently, according to Star Tribune story, is settling in on $1 million for the trademark of
you know what my favorite part of that story
buckets? Is? Yes.
She was quoted in that story.
Mm-hmm.
And because she's got 1 million Instagram followers, she is going to cash in. And she's got 3 years at UConn left, by the way. She's going to be that... Besides, Ben Lieber at Kansas State, the most highly compensated college athlete maybe of our time.
Correct.
And she goes, $1 million, it's a lot to take in for a small town kid. Like, you're from Hopkins. Come on.
It's
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah, but it's a small town sensibility in Hopkins.
Don't call us flyover country.
Hopkins likes to think of itself as, have its own blue-collar sensibility.
I don't know.
Not like South St. Paul, but that's
that's a totally different deal. Yeah, she'll make $1 million easily.
Pat Kessler is scheduled to join us next. There's a lot to get to about one of his favorite governors in the meat grinder. Will he resign? That's among the questions we will discuss with him next.
The Fan.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Pat Kessler.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler. And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own Pat Kessler Political Wonk.
I feel like a supermodel, except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's Pat Kessler with Dan Barrero on The Fan.
Well, I can't think of any better way. By the way, let me mention to Kessler right off the top here on the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. I probably should have said this to you off air, but why bother? Let's have an on-air production meeting. Because in some cases, it's better to just tear the Band-Aid off.
Because we have these meetings all the time.
Yes, we do. Well, this one, we're heading into the fall. And, of course, as we prepare for the fall, around here, it's, all right, let's take a look at how we do things. And maybe we've had the summer to sort of, take some time off, recreate, take a break, all that stuff. But now we got to ratchet this thing up. And we're constantly at the Fan, as you know, thinking about ways to get better. Not being predictable.
That's all you do.
No complacency.
No complacency.
Yeah, exactly.
And our oar in the water, changing our best.
What we've been reminded of, and I don't want to get too technical for the reasons for it, but there are technical reasons apparently for it, that the day of an intro to a segment are coming to an end, and the day of the long intro, which defines yours, is beyond over. So I'm just going to let you down gently. Don't expect this open to last into the fall.
Past
into
Labor Day.
Well, I object. I strongly object to this, and I think your listeners will also object.
Well, I'll throw it out to the audience.
Well, you shut up,
at KFan.com. They can
Come
weigh
on,
in.
man.
If you're lucky, what you're going to get is a big voice guy as you're coming on saying, Pat Kessler. That's going to be the extent of it, because we're told in this modern world of measuring and people's attention spans,
we just
and
need
all
to get
that
to
stuff,
the point.
that we need to get to you.
We just got to get to you.
Not so much the longest intro in the history of this program.
Well, what if the big voice guy says, I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport? Something like that.
Well, but even that's too long.
It is.
That's too long.
Yeah, it's
how
too
about,
long.
This is Pat Kessler.
Well, that might be okay. Actually, that would be another way to do it. You introduce yourself with that soundbite. That's true.
Now, what if we gave you the choice, of the bumper music every week, and then that became your open? If we gave you just pick a Springsteen song that you want to play in perpetuity, and then that will, because that's what we do with Big Knocker. Mayo Clinic Big Knocker, Bill Maurice, he gets the Joker, right? He gets Steve Miller Band.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just pick a song that you want to classify as your song, and then
I actually interviewed once, Steve Miller.
Steve Miller?
Yeah.
How did that go?
About that song.
Did it go well?
It went very well, yes. He was in Minnesota to talk about nuclear waste storage. He was here with Bonnie Raitt. He had a press conference.
Back in the day. So that goes back a while when I remember those two
back in the day.
This is Pat Kessler
front and center on those issues, along with a couple members of the Eagles and several others. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Not the Philadelphia Eagles, the group.
Yeah, and so, I had my chance at one question. And so, everybody thinks I'm going to be asking about the half-life of nuclear waste storage. So my question to him was, what does the word pompatus mean? That's what I asked him in this very serious press conference.
And how did he respond?
I got to ask you, I got one chance to ask a question. What in the world does pompatus of love mean?
This is Pat Kessler.
And he looks at me. And I didn't know which way he was going to go.
Yeah.
People are all over me all the time.
Sure.
Angry.
Yes.
Me. Yeah. Happened all the time. And he looked at me and he started laughing. He said, it means nothing.
Nothing. Good answer. Well, you
it's
hit
a made-up word.
Yeah.
That he needed a certain number of syllables.
Correct.
To go into the song. So some people call me Maurice because they speak of the pompatus of love.
Yeah. Well,
so it was one of the most meaningful exchanges of my career right there.
Well, it's an instructive story because, as you know, and you said this, it can go either way. there are some artists who in that situation aren't going to go with the flow and have fun with it. They're going to take themselves so seriously, and they're going to look at you and say, we're here talking about serious stuff, sir. Do you have a serious question? Even though their fame has been made on stuff like the pompatus of love. And so I'm encouraged that he ran with it. He got into the spirit of it as opposed to putting up the big wall and the big facade of, are you not taking me seriously because I'm a rock star? Yeah, exactly. So
now, I will say, as long as we're on the subject, your interview with Zim yesterday, I was on edge the whole time, very anxious because I did not know which way he was going to go.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Are we going to get good Zim?
Yeah.
Are we going to get angry Zim? I mean, which Zim are we going to get? Now, I didn't know, some of those questions I'm thinking, he's going to
blow. He's going to blow.
So I don't know what was going on.
Well, that was the old, I felt, as you know, it becomes easier to, in your mind, finesse the notion of probing and continuing when he seems to signal, I'm going with it. And most of the way he was going with it. And you know why he's going with it? He's PO'd. He's actually more annoyed, I think, than he is showing at this point that this team and that they're in this situation, that it was so needlessly set up and created that it's bugging him. And today he did cut it off. Today he started his presser by saying, I'm done with the COVID talk. So if you got something else you want to ask me, that's fine. So we got in the last dibs.
The first question then is about COVID.
Well,
if
you were there, that's because you're a shock jock. That's what you'd have done. I was disappointed to find out no one did test him on it because that's interviewing 101, isn't it? In the political world, is you got
you let it go,
you got to
probe
a
little bit,
and then you come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You test it. You got to test him on it.
I'm done talking about vaccinations, so we're out of that business. So fire away.
Well, here's the thing. I've never really felt of Zimmer as an everyman, but he is reflecting the frustration and irritation and possible anger that I'm feeling over this with the bikes. I still don't understand this, and no one has yet explained to me why they can't say, get a vaccine or you're not going to play. I don't get it.
Well, I think, again, I don't know that they can't. I think they've decided because it wasn't collectively bargained and you got a union that must. I'm assuming that's the rub on this. Look at this on the intros. I'm going to be devastated if you get rid of Kessler's intro. Been listening for 10 plus years. It's part of KFAN lore. Tell Abbott to shove it.
Whoa.
Man,
wow.
That's aggressive.
Wow.
Well,
that's go ahead.
I love, writes Bill G., as do certifiably all your listeners, Dan, the Kessler intro. Don't change the intro, writes Tom. Just change Trump soundbite to Biden's like you did from Obama to Trump and before that Bush to Obama. That's how long the Kessler intro has existed, and it is too iconic.
Will you shut up, man?
To get rid of. These people they're serious, apparently. Unless this is just you with several burner names. I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm encouraging emails on this, but I'm saying I think this is going to
look at this.
Rub people the wrong way.
The people have spoken.
Oh, it's unanimous. Here's another one. This is egregious. Just keep the opener as it is, please. Jonathan, keep the intro, all of them, especially Kessler's. Wow. Maybe we have to rethink it.
See, Dan, we don't ask for much.
No, you
myself and the listeners. We don't ask for much. Is this too much to ask?
Maybe we'll have to reconsider it. I don't know. I don't know if this would be a scientific poll, though. This is, you know how polls are. There's scientific polls, and then there's just a bunch of emails.
And then there's social media.
Yeah, so I don't know. But we'll see.
Yeah. I also get tweets and emails every week from people that wish the open was longer so that Kessler would actually talk less. We'd have less time for Kessler. If you could do the 5-minute open is the best part. Just a handful.
You have made your devotion to Bruce Springsteen and his legacy rather obvious over the years. And certainly most recently after you just spent, I don't know, $2,000 a ticket to see him in New York.
At least.
Well, you're about to say more, weren't you?
In your lawn mowing.
Yeah. Are you aware, and for all I know, I've already missed this. Because what's today, Wednesday?
Yes, August 4th.
So apparently yesterday, Jessica Springsteen began competition in Olympic equestrian jumping. Now, she's 29 years old. She will realize a lifelong dream when she leads her 12-year-old stallion, Don Juan, into Equestrian Park and representing the United States. She missed out on Rio in 2016, was an alternate 4 years earlier in London. For the record, they write in this piece, her father is singer-songwriter Bruce Springsteen.
Her father,
you didn't know. So I'm wondering if
I have been looking for this for days just to try and see.
Well, how does she do? Do we know?
I'm kind of interested in that.
If you know, if people, that we've got to have a couple of great equestrian minds out there. Is that competition already done? Is it ongoing? Is she in the mix for a medal? What do we know about Jessica?
Ask our listeners about that because I am actually kind of interested. I just want to see it. I've never seen his kids except on social media pictures and that kind of thing.
Right.
But she's a serious equestrian. Now, a lot of people were ripping Springsteen because they said this is too elitist. I don't know what is the most elite sport. Is it this?
It's probably in the top 5. Yeah,
right there with fencing.
Yeah.
Well, is gymnastics? Is fencing?
No, not gymnastics.
I'm just throwing it out there.
You're throwing it out there. Yeah, I would say Guardsy's right. Fencing, although I don't even really know that. Equestrian's got to be right there.
Yes.
It's got to be. Because,
is it because it costs a lot?
Yes. Are you kidding me?
This is the thing.
You got to have your own horse.
Well, you don't necessarily. I don't think this is her horse. I think she is using someone else's horse, I believe.
You do?
I'm not exactly sure how this works.
Well, according to the story,
I should stop speaking.
Yeah,
because I don't know what I'm talking about.
You're making it up as you go along, which is it's a good skill to have in TV.
Yeah.
When we come back, let's talk about your guy, Cuomo. I keep calling him Mario Cuomo. He's not Mario Cuomo. That's a different
Mario was really something.
Yeah, he was special.
Yeah.
This is the governor of the state of New York in the meat grinder. Everybody that is anybody is calling for his resignation. He continues so far to say, I'm not going anywhere, but has anything changed in that regard today? What do we make of that particular story? And we'll get to a couple of other things as well when we return with former Channel 4 political...
On the Fan.
This is Pat Kessler.
Who would have thunk that?
This is Pat Kessler reporting.
Is polo an Olympic sport?
I know water polo is. I'm not sure about polo.
Polo would be considered generally an elitist sport.
Definitely.
I don't know that water polo would, but I don't know. Is regular polo in the Olympics, Pat Kessler? You know?
I don't. We have a lot of equestrian sports right here in Minnesota.
We do?
I don't know how elite this is.
Okay.
Of course.
Oh, well.
I'm a hockey parent. You know how much it costs to keep a kid in hockey gear?
Yeah, there's
it's got to be as much as a horse.
There's pretty close. There's probably too many generalizations going on here. I want to read to you the first 3 paragraphs of a New York Times story on the account of a state trooper. This is a new account, according to the Times, of a state trooper that the New York Times suggests bolsters, I should say, a meticulous new report on Governor Andrew Cuomo's, as they describe, misdeeds. This is written by Matt Flegenheimer. The governor placed his finger on the back of the trooper's neck, standing behind her in an elevator at his Manhattan office, tracing the path of her spine with a 2-word narration. Hey, you. Sometimes he asked questions. Why didn't she wear a dress? Why pursue marriage when, quote, your sex drive goes down afterward, unquote? Could he kiss her? And sometimes he made statements. He remarked that his ideal girlfriend could handle pain. He said that the trooper in her late 20s was too old for him. He directed her to say nothing of their conversations. The trooper, he writes, was perhaps most unsettled after an event on Long Island in 2019. As she held the door open for him, she felt the palm of his hand on her belly button, pressing toward her right hip where she kept her gun. I felt completely violated, she told investigators later. But, I'm here to do a job. A lot of the stories are like that, are very similar to those very disturbing allegations as well. So is it going to, in the end, matter that everybody, including, it appears, the President of the United States, a bunch of Democrats, have said that Governor Cuomo needs to resign? Is he going to listen? Does he at some point have to listen? How is this going to play out?
At some point, he will have to listen. It will be untenable for him. Think about it. 1 year ago, he was on the track for a presidential campaign, President of the United States, and now, grotesquely, with this report, has fallen pretty much out of favor. The leaders of the Democratic Party, from Joe Biden to Pelosi and Schumer, to all of the congressional delegation and senators in New York are all calling for his resignation if he does not resign. And right now he's in total, full 100% denial mode. For good measure, the New York State legislature is preparing papers to impeach him. So it's very difficult to know how long he can last. I am surprised he took such a defiant tone in the same way Bill Clinton did. Deny, 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 go after the accuser. In the same way that Donald Trump did with all of the accusers against him and other governors in the past who have denied this wrongdoing. That's his goal. I don't think he can last, and I don't know how much longer he can last right now till the end of his term.
It's interesting because I felt before the report came out, as they were doing the investigating, he definitely was in the mode, because there were people already calling for his head before the official investigation. But he clearly was in the mode of, I've seen other people ride this stuff out, and I'm going to ride it out. And I think the assumption was, once you get stuff down on paper and you get an investigation of this sort, unless the allegation is that the investigation's tainted, and I don't believe so far there's much indication of, or politically motivated, and I guess you can never speak to that. I mean, I'll give you a good example. The mayor of New York and Cuomo hate each other. They're both Democrats, but they hate each other. And so there's a part of it there where you go, well, the mayor is going to, almost regardless of what the report comes out with, the mayor is going to take every opportunity when the governor shows vulnerability to dance on his grave. The problem here is that the devil's in the details here, Pat. The amount of specificity and details and the number of people that he can cry politics if he wants. And he might not be wrong that some people, rivals are enjoying this, but that's different than actually addressing and dealing with the allegations themselves as serious as they are.
Well, let's go back to what this investigation actually is. And Andrew Cuomo, the governor, supported this investigation, said that it would exonerate him. Just wait for the results of this investigation by the Democratic New York State Attorney General Letitia James. This is a 165-page report, has 11 accusations by 11 current and former government workers in his office. It is extremely extensive, extremely detailed. It is all corroborated. The comments have come forward to add more comments to it. So now he is saying it's tainted. I think that is a sideshow. I think that is a way to divert attention from what this is, which again, I think I call this a grotesque abuse of power, and there might be some criminal liability here for him. So let's go back, though, Dan. I think it's really important to go back to where we were 1 year ago when he was the heartthrob of the country, when CNN and MSNBC were broadcasting live these hour-and-a-half COVID press conferences in which the governor was playful and joking, and he was described as sexy.
Cuomosexuals. His fans were referred to as Cuomosexuals.
Cuomo-sexuals. I mean, that's what was happening here. And then suddenly this turn of events where word began to leak out that he was a lot less than what he was presenting. He was a bully. He was a screamer and a shouter. There was an atmosphere of toxic fear in the governor's office that we now know about. And then after that came all of the allegations of sexual harassment. Now, during all of this time, his brother, Chris Cuomo, on CNN, they were having brotherly love spats on TV. I mean, looking back on it, it is amazing what has happened in 12 short months.
There's no question about that. The contrast is rather dramatic. Diagram this sentence for me from the Attorney General report. While concluding that the governor engaged in unlawful sexual harassment, we do not reach in this report a conclusion as to whether the conduct amounts to or should be the subject of criminal prosecution. Now, on the face of it, that seems like a contradiction in terms. If you conclude he's engaged in unlawful sexual harassment, how is he not then subject to criminal prosecution?
I think Letitia James has done an incredible job with this report, and so I would never criticize her for not going further. Her explanation is that was not within the purview of the law, which allowed her to do this deep dive, and that it is up to others, according to Attorney General James, to file charges. Now, there's a whole bunch of
But she's the Attorney General. That's the position of legal authority, one would think.
You would think that. And there are so many different angles to this. For example, they're misdemeanors. It might be a misdemeanor punishable by 1 year. The statute of limitations has expired perhaps on others because this is a pattern of behavior. And when you see this normally with this kind of abuser, when you see this kind of evidence, it's not something that just happened the last month or the last year. It usually goes back 20 years, and that's the indications here. So there are others who may be considering this, and there might be civil lawsuits against Cuomo and the state. So that's why she says she didn't do it. It was a little bit unsatisfying when she laid out all of this terrible behavior. But no charges. I don't disagree at all.
So, do we have an allegation here of sexual harassment within the state from a DFL staffer that we should at least discuss? And is this a story that just is sort of gaining momentum? What do we know about this thing?
Yeah, this is something that was first reported by Minnesota Reformer, which found this woman who says that she was sexually harassed by another staffer, a Democrat, when she was working on Democratic campaigns. The problem, she says, is that this alleged harasser, is the brother of a powerful Democratic state senator. She claims that the Democrats did nothing about it other than try to get her to get a different job. Now, that is basic. That's 101. You don't do that. You try to investigate the complaints. Now this is blowing up by the way the Democratic leadership handled it in the Minnesota Senate, and they are now asking for an outside investigation there. Now, remember, this is only a couple of years past where there was a Me Too scandal, sex harassment scandal, that swept the Capitol and caused resignations and firings at the state Capitol. And so they still haven't learned anything. So, yeah, this is something to keep your eye on, because that will probably be playing out over the next few months.
Look at this email regarding the intro controversy, which we discussed earlier, the possibility of our intro being eliminated to save time. Emailer Dan writes, get rid of PD Abbott instead. Keep all intros, especially Kessie's, a.k.a. Mr. Freaky McFreak. I literally have not found a single email so far in favor of either shortening or eliminating the Kessler Open.
And I appreciate that email so much. I appreciate that sentiment, because not only does it wrap in the regular listeners to the show Now it sounds like it's opened up to Gopher fans who are very concerned about this and how it might affect Freaky McFreak.
Yeah,
And so
well, it's all
I welcome
connected.
that.
It's all interconnected.
That's all I'm saying.
You're right.
Yeah.
Emailer Nick St. Paul, this is for you, Guardsy. Subject line, fencing, elitist? U.S. Olympic fencer Susie Scanlon, a high school friend of mine, oh, good for me, was raised with very blue-collar sensibilities on the mean streets of St. Paul's North End. Guardsy's claim that fencing is elitist is ignorant at best and simply idiotic at worst.
Wow.
I get that a lot, ignorant or idiotic.
Although there's an IALTO after, so I think he's trying to have fun with you a little bit.
Well, that reflects how many of us feel about Guardsy.
That's vicious. I think we just think
Shots fired!
I'm just thinking about Harvard versus Yale and watching it like Social Network when they're fencing.
Is there fencing? Is there competitive fencing in the Big Ten?
I think a couple teams have it.
Well, I mean, if they got rid of tennis and gymnastics, and by the way, congratulations to all the University of Minnesota gymnasts. I mean, they get rid of that. Would they keep fencing? I'd say no. What is the elitist? Come on.
Larry Mondello guy is unhappy with you.
Ohio State has fencing.
Ohio State does?
They also have pistol and rifle.
Ohio State's got everything.
They have 36 sports. I think we counted it.
What is the pistol sport?
Like 9 sports.
What is the pistol sport?
What do you think?
We got to find that out. Is it just target?
It's target. It's got to be, right?
Yes.
I assume. Yeah.
Well, I hope it's targets.
Yeah,
I hope it's not like a Marty Wexler III deal where it's real
people.
people.
You said pistol sport.
Pistol. Well, it's a sport.
Rifle.
The sport of pistol.
Okay, got it.
Something like that. Larry Mondello guy's unhappy with you. While discussing what the most elitist Olympic sport is, Kessler included gymnastics among the possibilities. Gymnastics? The reigning women's Olympic overall champions from South St. Paul, the land of the blue-collar sensibility. Is this part of a smear campaign in the ongoing feud between whether she can be claimed by St. Paul or South St. Paul? That's your neck of the woods, so maybe you're trying to get in the middle of that controversy.
Well, that's a very interesting comment. Hashtag sarcasm. The thing about it is everybody wants in on Suni Lee. I mean, this is a tremendous story. This is a blue-collar story, an immigrant story. It's a fantastic story. I do resent a little bit that South St. Paul wants in. And now we're to the point where the city of Minneapolis wants in. The parade is going to be in St. Paul, okay? That's number one. But now Minneapolis wants to get in because apparently Suni Lee's fingernail polish. Have you seen it? It's incredible.
It's gorgeous.
She has fingernail designed with like the Olympic rings on it and everything.
Yes.
Minneapolis is claiming she gets her nails done in Minneapolis.
Case closed.
Enough said.
That's enough said right there.
Said.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, but I just don't think, I think we nurtured Suni Lee, Jalen Suggs. Come on, everybody. This is St. Paul.
You want all of it, don't you? You want every bit of it.
Yes.
You want the parade to go down, go through the Stone Arch Bridge, right? In the heart of St. Paul.
Well, now
well.
you're probably saying
right
you're claiming Grace McCallum too, because Isanti is the St. Paul of Cambridge Isanti. That's probably what you're claiming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone wants a piece of this.
Yeah, there's no question.
But all I'm saying is I actually started to envision this now. I'll try to visualize what it's going to be like, and I'll be there. That's all I'm saying.
All right, on that note, we're going to let you go. We're going to take all the emails we received under advisement. It'll all be part of the process. We have a process here at the Fan on decisions.
It's very fair. Everybody gets a vote, but some votes count more than others.
By the way, do you think Tom Brady got his COVID shot or not?
Yes.
I think he did, but a lot of people are telling me they don't think he did. I think he did.
No, this is a guy who takes his football seriously. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I tend to think you're right, but I don't know. It's an interesting question.
I'm really flummoxed by
understandably
what's going on here. These are athletes. But more than that, they're endangering other people around them. And it's because of them we can't have a Super Bowl victory. That's what it's going to come down to.
Think about it. That's going to be what stands between us and finally getting to the promised land.
When we forfeit the Packers game in the NFL championship, I'm telling you,
we have, by all accounts, Kessie, we have the lowest percentage of players vaccinated of any team in the National Football League. We are dead last. Think about it.
Well, and where are these people getting their information?
Well,
these are smart people.
I'd like to think so.
These guys, and that you can't be a dumb NFL player. I mean, you got to be smart to play in the NFL. I mean, come on. You've got to be smarter than that. They're athletes. They know about their bodies. They got to be talking to their doctors. This is shocking to me. But what is even more shocking is that, like Google, like Facebook, like Disney, like all of these big companies, that the NFL cannot require their employees to actually get a vaccination.
Well, stay tuned.
That surprises me.
Stay tuned. Who knows? On that note, we're going to let you go. Thanks for the time, as always. We intend to chat with you next week at about the same time.
All right. Good luck. See you guys.
Thank you. Channel 4, or formerly of Channel 4, Pat Kessler is indeed kind enough to join us. I have a postscript on the Cuomo story that I meant to get into with Kessler, but we'll try to include that in our next segment. We'll also follow up with a couple of emails as well, and maybe... Worser and worser, as somebody once said, for the governor of the state of Minnesota, Andrew Cuomo.
New York.
What did I say, Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Yeah, it'd be New York. He wouldn't last here. We're way too above board. We are way too ethical to allow a charlatan like that to be elevated to such a position of importance, to the point of worship at one point in the COVID crisis. There's two reports here. One of these is out of thehill.com. Human Rights Campaign President Alphonso David allegedly helped leak the confidential personnel file of a former aide to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who accused the state leader of sexual harassment. That allegation detailed in a report released by the New York Attorney General Tuesday. The probe also stated that Cuomo's aides took steps intended to discredit and disparage Lindsey Boylan, the first former Cuomo staffer to publicly accuse the governor of sexual harassment by leaking negative information about her to the media. David was a counselor to Cuomo in 2018 when Boylan resigned after Cuomo allegedly kissed her without her consent. David kept Boylan's confidential information, including workplace complaints about her, when he left Cuomo's office to become president of HRC in 2019. After Boylan publicly accused Cuomo of sexual harassment last year, David allegedly shared Boylan's personnel file with a top Cuomo advisor, who then, leaked the information to several reporters. In addition, according to the same report, Roberta Kaplan, the co-founder of something called Time's Up, advised the Cuomo team about an op-ed the governor wrote to discredit Lindsey Boylan, a name we just mentioned. A top Cuomo aide said Kaplan and Time's Up CEO Tina Tchen largely approved of the op-ed piece, which was never published, denied the legitimacy of Ms. Boylan's allegations, impugned her credibility, and attacked her claims as politically motivated, according to the Attorney General's report. The finding could undercut Kaplan and her organization's claims to be champions of, guess what, the Me Too movement, which you really can't make up. Kaplan and Chen, a former Obama White House official, co-founded Time's Up in 2018 in the wake of allegations of sexual assault against Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. The allegations against Cuomo are arguably the biggest Me Too case in the past couple years. And the details, I think some of it is still being studied. The report's pretty thorough, and I think a lot of media outlets are getting to the fine print, so to speak. But in both of these cases, it just adds extra layers to just how dysfunctional this is and how untenable his position as governor is at this point. You know, I tend to agree with the philosophy generally of when individuals are elected, I like better letting the people ultimately decide by voting them in or out. There reaches a point, though, where the behavior is egregious enough that you can't just allow them to continue to function. And in fact, that their ability to function is so badly damaged that they are almost, they should be removed if at all possible. There may be impeachment proceedings, as Kessler mentioned as well. But when it gets back to, it all depends on whose ox is being gored. Because if these reports are true, that an anti-sexual harassment group works with Cuomo to smear one of the accusers to protect Cuomo, it does remind us that this conviction about such an important issue, which is supposed to be consistent and philosophical and moral and across all political lines, that there's still limits to it. That, yeah, if it's if they're on the other team, if they're a shark, then me too, baby. We're part of it. We got to get that person out. But if it's a jet, you're still going to try to use the same techniques that in any other circumstance you would be savaging, which is find vulnerabilities for the accuser, go after the accuser, no matter how many there are. By the way, at that point there weren't as many.
Maybe call that victim shaming if it was on the other side.
Yeah, it's deflating, but it's a reminder that for a lot of people in politics, it is still too much about whose ox is being gored. Now, many Democrats are front and center calling for his head in this case, most notably starting in the White House. Mm-hmm. So there has been plenty of that at this point. But it should be pointed out, this is at a point where it's almost automatic because of the report itself coming out, the numbers that are involved here, the detail here. What's more instructive is what you're doing at a point where it's first being revealed or first emerging, and where apparently if you're a Me Too believer, you're still capable of helping that person who has been accused find ways to get out of it or wiggle his way out of it. It's like, well, it's just one person, and if we can go after her enough, then the governor has enough equity with the people that he's going to survive this thing. And it's like, that's where your true colors are shown, right? Now, I'm not talking about stuff that's trumped up or made up, but I'm talking about stuff that has credibility to it, as we're learning most of these cases do, maybe all of these cases do, and you're on the front end of it, playing that game that or under any other circumstance you would be savaging of, where's she vulnerable? Where is the person? Where is the accuser vulnerable? When the rest of your day you're admonishing that strategy, ripping it, criticizing it, making fun of it as well. So that will be the other part of that this story. The biggest part is him, but the other part of the story, I think, is going to be, well, who enabled him early? Aides that contributed to this sort of strategy, I guess. Which I guess if you do it often enough and you believe enough in your person, you go, it's a disgruntled former employee. Let's just, we can take her out and then we can survive this thing. He's doing too much important work. You can start lying to yourself enough that you believe that even as you do what you do, you don't realize the damage that is being done to that individual and the way you're undermining whatever credibility he or she might have as a leader as well.
I'm curious how people that are helping him now truly feel about it. Because, he's back on the offensive. He put out the prepackaged statement video. And did you see the accompanying videos and pictures that he threw out there as well?
No.
It was like a lot of, this is, I'm a person that tries to put people at ease. And it's basically pictures and videos of him hugging, kissing, arms around, like all these different pictures and photos. Like they are full-fledged, fighting back on it. And it's just, I'm interested if everybody that's helping him with that is completely on board with it. There's some that are like,
no doubt,
what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But they've got jobs to do too. That's the tricky part there, is a lot of them have jobs to do.
If you're this selective, you can't call yourself a Me Too person. You are killing your own credibility as a Me Too person if you are still willing to, but this is my guy. This is the governor of the state of New York. This is a guy who I agree with many of his policies in front and center. You're not to be taken seriously. And that apparently is exactly what we have examples of in this particular case. Dan Winnesota writes that dueling, we were talking about pistol sport.
Yes.
The sport of pistol.
Yes.
And Kessler was taken aback. I think he wondered if, does guards mean they actually shoot at each other? Dueling was a sport at the 1906 and 1908 Olympics.
What?
Dueling. Well, I'm sensationalizing it for the clicks.
Yeah.
I'll give you the details now.
So you either medal or you die?
Well, it's not quite that dramatic.
Okay.
In the 1906 Olympics, male competitors fired dueling pistols at plaster dummies from 20 meters and 30 meters. It gets better in 1908, though. Pistol dueling then was demonstrated as part of the concurrent Franco-British exhibition using the Olympic fencing area and in front of invited guests. There were no official demonstration sports until 1912. The competition involved two male competitors firing at each other with dueling pistols loaded with wax bullets and wearing protective equipment for the torso, face, and hands. Teams were sent by countries including France, United Kingdom, and the United States. The 20-meter competition was won by the French team for the record of Major Ferris, J. Murray, and J. Ruvkanachi. J. Ruvkanachi. So there it is. So
good background, good primer.
These were apparently wax bullets, but they were firing in 1908 at each other. I tell you what, I think people would watch.
Yes, they would. I would watch.
As long as they're protected.
Yes.
So,
rubber bullets. Yeah. Have some bruises.
Rubber bullets don't rubber bullets sting, though?
They do, absolutely.
Yeah.
From what I'm told.
Well, that would be impetus to fire first.
Yeah.
Get the shot off first, right?
Or be a good dodger.
Be a good dodger. Can you dodge a rubber bullet?
Yes.
You can.
I'm sure it's difficult.
Okay. 20 meters is how far? Do they mean like 20 meters apart?
I think so.
What's 20 meters? How many feet is it?
Isn't it 60?
About 60 feet?
Or is that 20 yards? Is a meter and a yard the same thing? Because I know a yard's 3 feet. Is a meter a yard or is it like 2.2?
I don't know. Because what you're describing would be like from the pitcher's mound to home plate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, except in Frank Viola's league where you see they've made it official. They're now experimenting with a mound that's is it a foot and change, I think, further back from home plate. They just started that, I believe, last night. He alluded to it before we started our interview with him reacting to the Barrios trade that they were going to give it a shot in his league. They do a lot of experimentation in his league.
So meters are about 3 feet, a little bit more than 3 feet. So I was right.
So 3 feet's a yard, right?
Technically, yeah.
Technically?
Yeah.
In that range?
So we're looking at
a little bit of a difference.
You said 20 meters?
20 meters is the competition.
So a little over 60 feet.
We got the show wrap to remind you what you might have missed from much earlier in this program. We got into a very esoteric subject as it pertains to the importance of art. We'll explain why when we return.
The Fan.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Bantam A-State champ guy writes, subject line, meters versus yards. I'm alarmed that I received my A-section world and U.S. news from two gentlemen who have no idea how to convert feet/yards.
What do you mean we nailed it? We got there.
Did we?
Yes.
I would submit respectfully a reply respectfully to Jake that we're more interested in the big stuff, the big ideas. This is minutia, feet, yards, meters, centimeters.
I think the fact that we could get on the right track so quickly speaks 100% to our intelligence.
I'd like to trust you that we're on the right track, but I'll take your word for it. But I've been burned before taking your word for it.
That's why I always double check.
You're on pretty solid ground this time?
On this one, I am.
Okay, fair enough.
I think. I felt good about it. I double checked it.
100 meters is longer than 100 yards.
Yes.
Correct?
Because I think a yard is exactly 3 feet. And a meter is a little bit longer than 3 feet. Yeah. 3.2 from
the
what they're
100-yard dash is a shorter distance than the 100-meter dash. In the Olympics, it's the 100 meters, correct?
Yes.
Fan on demand tonight, and then Dan Patrick tomorrow we reopened the inbox, Dr. Dan's inbox, and Big Knocker William Maurice is scheduled to join us from Mayo Clinic. I got a lot of salient and timely questions for him this week once again. Remember that period where we were worried that people around here are worried about, well, you going to have anything left to talk about with the knocker? I think we've passed that particular
We're never going to
crisis,
get rid of him.
So I think we got him forever. We were talking art on the show, an interesting soundbite from a Bill Murray, almost like a press conference situation where he might have been talking about a new movie in which he related a time, and I'm told he's actually told the story before in slightly less dramatic fashion. Even Murray, as he's telling the story, admits that this is mostly true. So he might have been playing around with some of the details, but basically saying that he was so down on his acting ability very early in his run that he ended up walking aimlessly towards Lake Michigan, maybe with thoughts of jumping in, maybe not. Ends up at the Art Institute of Chicago and tells a story about how one painting basically made him think twice about the degree to which he was down about his condition, maybe even on his life. One lovely painting changed all of that. A reminder for us that art indeed is fuel. You never know when it's going to be fuel, how it's going to be fuel, and what form it'll be in. Whether it'll be a song that gets to you like no other song, whether it's a performance, whether it might even be a sculpture. In this case, it was a piece of art that's still there, in a very prominent spot at the Art Institute of Chicago. It's called The Song of the Lark. You can look it up.
And they sing in the morning.
It's beautiful. And we did
great.
learn that. They're more likely to sing in the morning than at the end of the day.
If the sun comes up tomorrow, you got another crack at it. What Bill Murray said. I'm a person, the sun came up, I got another crack at it. I love that.
That's exactly what he's trying to get to, man. As bad as things might get for you on a given day. We had our own seal of approval for a pole vaulter who was hurt so badly that she could barely get the stick off the ground, but she's kept going after it. Kept going after it as I think the defending silver medalist, and she won't not get near the attention that she deserves for sending her own message of sorts. So, I think it was a pretty eclectic show today. We got back into some review of what Zimmer told us yesterday. And tomorrow is going to be a big day because tomorrow is the scheduled return of Kirk Cousins to Vikings practice. Will he meet the Jackals? What will his approach be with the Jackals? Will he get a jab in front of the Jackals? That would be dramatic, would it not?
If Sugarman just goes and gives him a shot.
Says here, let's you know what? Let's just get this done. Too much at stake in 2021. We're going to the Super Bowl. Shug, give me the jab.
Give me the Johnson & Johnson. One and done, baby.
There you go. Well, who's to say? Weirder things have happened. Although I'm not exactly holding my breath. We'll talk to you tomorrow beginning at 3.
I'm done talking about vaccinations, so we're out of that business. So fire away.